Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LFC Survivor Roundtable. I am your host, Taryn Armstrong, and we've got a great episode for you here today. I'm here to talk Survivor. I've got my fellow live feed correspondent, Brent Walgamite, here as well. How you doing, Brent?
I'm always the yang to your yin, Taryn Armstrong.
Are you the yang, really? I don't know. I feel like maybe you got those mixed up.
Yeah.
Melissa, unfortunately, I think that she was so ashamed of her draft picks that she was just like, I can't show my face in this podcast. So unfortunately, Melissa is not here, but we do have an excellent guest with us. We've got Aubry Bracco from Survivor Co-Wrong and Game Changers. How you doing, Aubry?
I'm great. Good to see you.
Very good to see you. Yes, we've talked Big Brother. You came on the Taryn show, and now we're going to talk Survivor. It's the trifecta.
I'm psyched. I'm a little nervous about talking about this season because I'm like, oh, is this what happened when I was in Fiji playing again? All this fun controversy.
Oh yes, controversy is always fun, especially with Survivor. I'm sure Brent is going to have a lot to say about controversy.
Yeah.
Yes, so we're here to talk about the Survivor finale and really just this season as a whole. There's a lot of interesting and fun stuff to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of yelling to happen in this podcast. So we've got the chat room open on RHAPisawebsite.com if you want to join us there, and you can send questions in to me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn if you so desire. We will do our best to answer those questions at the end of the podcast. But let's get into this. We saw this finale. It was about 2.5 hours long, and then we got like 10 minutes of reunion. So Brent, what did you think overall of this finale?
Boy, it really left me dissatisfied, I have to tell you. I think that my former co-host on the RuPaul's Drag Race podcast, Ali Lasher, said it best, that I was totally fine with Ben as a winner until the show decided that I probably didn't like Ben as a winner and then proceeded to tell me why Ben was an okay winner. Like, I mean, that's how I felt watching the reunion, was that, like, they wanted to show you all the great stuff about Ben and why he's a really good winner. And to call back to somebody else, Nick, your compatriot Aubry from Co-Wrong, who said, CBS, suck it up. Don't be afraid of having a bad winner. Sometimes it's okay to have a bad winner. I mean, I've seen seasons where there's bad winners. So, I mean, don't be afraid of that. Don't shy away from that, and instead embrace it. And I feel like they didn't want to embrace it. They wanted to augment the fact that they thought that Ben was a great winner, and he's a great guy. I just don't think he's a great winner.
Aubry, what do you think about that? How do you feel about Ben as a winner?
I thought Ben was a good winner. I thought that he played from behind. I thought that he had massive control of the game. I feel like I got like firebombed on Twitter the other night for having an opinion, but I think that if you looked at a lot of the players in isolation, they had very different games. I think Ben had one kind of game. I think Chrissy had one kind of game. Devin had another kind of game. I thought that Ben's intuition of knowing when he had to play his idols, that he had to play, I thought he was good. And I don't think he had the best social game, but I really don't think Chrissy had the best social game either. I felt like Chrissy, at the end, all of a sudden there was this narrative at Tribal Council, how she had this great social game. That for me came out of nowhere, in the same way like Coach at the end of South Pacific was saying he played an honorable game. When I heard Chrissy all of a sudden playing a social game, I was like, what? Where was I the whole season? Like, I don't think she had any worse of a social game than Ben, but I think it was different. And I think that because of the feelings around the new format, it's getting amplified. And like, quite honestly, for me watching it, I was like cringing. I mean, I don't even drink anymore, and I have a beer here because it gives me stress. I think of this as the players, and I'm just like, please don't Michelle Ben, and please don't Aubry Chrissy. Like, it's not fun for either party. And that's how I feel watching it. I can't help but see it as a player.
Well, see, now I have to tell you that I'm probably going to do a little bit of that. And I told Taryn ahead of time, like, I'm like, you really sure you want Aubry on a podcast with me? Because I'm not going to suck CBS's wang. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to call it as I see it. And I really feel like there was some BS going on in this episode, Aubry. And I feel like to say that Chrissy doesn't have a social game is an indictment of the process itself. Because to me, she did have a social game. She was controlling everything for the longest time up until the point when she got blindsided, was out of the loop for 2 votes, and then out of nowhere got control of the game again. She got, I mean, like, I still go back to the fact that, like, and Devin won a reward, and she somehow got Devin to do exactly what she wanted to do just by saying, "Oh, I think we should bring Ryan." Devin's like, "Okay, let's bring Ryan." Like, I mean, like, because she had control of the game and good relationships, and people listened to her because of that. And I feel like it's a little bit sour grapes at the end when people don't want to vote for her because they're like, well, I mean, let's look at the guy on the other end of the stick. I'm just kind of removing Ryan from this. I know he got a vote, but girl, bye, whatever. I never really believed in him as a winner. So I feel like that Ben, more than anybody, was the person who relied on idols, not relationships. I mean, he had no agency in this game whatsoever from the final 8 onward, okay? Whereas Chrissy certainly did. She used her social bonds to move herself forward in the game. I'm not even talking about the ridiculous Final 4 twist, which I'll get to, okay? But it bugs me that people, somehow the jury fell for the theater of playing idols rather than what it took for Chrissy to win 4 straight immunity challenges in a row, which you know how hard that is to do.
Oh, I do not take away from that. That was impressive.
She got no credit for it whatsoever. I mean, it really seemed like, I mean, even Joe at the final tribal council was like, we have Queen Chrissy. Oh, but I'm going to vote for Ben because he found a couple of idols, you know, while he was looking around in the dark with a bunch of sticks. I mean, like that, to me, it seems like they really put a lot more emphasis on that. And I don't think, like, if this is Survivor, if this is something where, you know, you come into a game and you're going to try to make your way to the end by building bonds with other people and getting them to vote out other people and make your way to the end, then it seems to me that there's 2 ways to do that. Either 1, that way, or 2, the other safety net that's always been there for people is the immunity challenge. You can win immunity and save yourself. So then the show's like, you know what? We need to fix that. We need to put more stuff in the game to help the alpha males because we don't like the fact that they're being voted off, and Jeff really likes the alpha males. So let's put more hidden immunity idols in the game. And like to the point where last season they had so many special advantages in the game where like their most iconic player ever, Sari, got voted off, and she didn't even have a vote against her. Okay, come to this season, I'm reading Jeff Probst in Entertainment Weekly. He's like, well, why did you put this twist in the game? Jeff's answer was, well, you know, something that's always bugged me over the years, Dalton, is that the people at the Final 4, someone wins immunity, and if the person who is the biggest threat doesn't win immunity, the other 3 can just turn around and say, you know what? We don't want you here. Get out. Which is exactly what they said like 5 years ago when they instituted the Final 3. At the Final 3, it was always, well, I mean, that's the Rob Cesternino spot. That's the Lex Vandenberg, the Kathy Vavrick O'Brien spot, where all the great players got left at the altar at the Final 3 because the Final 2 said, you know what? We don't want you here. We can't beat you. So where is the stopping point then, Probst? I mean, seriously, if you're going to put a mechanism in the game that saves somebody at the Final 4, then what? Now, because the players are going to figure this out. So you're never going to have somebody like Ben left around at the. I know I'm really ramped up there. I don't think I've taken a breath. My point is that the players are going to figure this out. And you're never going to have somebody like Ben or some alpha male at the Final 4 next time because the players like, well, the last time to actually vote somebody off is Final 5. So I feel like that it's just going to exacerbate the problem because people are going to be really scared of taking these kind of guys to anywhere close to the end because if they just string a few things together with an idol here and an immunity challenge there, there's no way to get rid of them. And I feel like that's where the show's gone wrong. Rant over.
Well, it's funny because throughout that rant, I had like 3 or 4 points that I was like, "Oh, I have a disagreement here." But then by the end, the last point you made, I agreed with. So then it was like you tricked me. Now you got the whole
I accepted
rant
you. Yeah.
And now Aubrey unfortunately knows what it's like to be on a podcast with Brent. So
I've been holding this in, and I slept on this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aubrey.
No, I said it's all good. Continue.
Yes. But no, I hear what you're saying, Brent. In terms of Chrissy, I had always been a huge fan of Chrissy. But I do sort of see that, it's not like she did have complete control. I think that she lost control in the same way that Ryan did. And then the reason she was able to get control back was because of Ben and his idol playing. If Ben hadn't played his idol to take Lauren out, Chrissy would not have remained in control. She still would have been on the outs. She still would have been,
There's a little bit, with all due respect, because this is one of the questions that I asked Rob on the voicemail that I insisted he read on the voicemails and answer. And he said, it was never that simple because I had the same feeling as you, which was why were Chrissy and Ryan voting against Ben? Because in doing so, they would have lost control of the game because Lauren had that extra vote. But he said it never was that simple, because Lauren had made plans to realign with Chrissy and Ryan because she was scared of the twosome of Ashley and Devin. And thus, I don't think that Chrissy's lack of control in the game was ever as weak as it seemed to us on the outside.
I mean, that's certainly interesting, but I don't think you're probably right. It's not straightforward. If Lauren was telling that to Ryan and Chrissy, maybe she was truthful, maybe she wasn't. But in terms of like her control in the game, I do think that, she did make a fair amount of mistakes, and I do think that in terms of like who had the best social game, if we're just isolating social game, I honestly think that Ryan probably had the best social game. I think he had the best social connections with people.
The final three, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in the early game where he was able to use that to his advantage. And then toward the end of the game, I think that he had really good relationships with people, but they didn't respect him in terms of being a game player. I think that they saw Chrissy as the pusher in that relationship, the one that was making the moves, and Ryan was sort of along for the ride. But yeah, so and then when we go to like immunity challenges versus immunity idols and all that, I do think that we have come to devalue what it means to win an immunity challenge. And I think maybe that's partly because of what Mike Holloway did. I think that prior to Mike Holloway, anybody that was going to win out until the end of the game, it would have been the only time it had ever happened. And then we saw Mike Holloway do it, and they all gave him the win. And then afterward, I think the collective Survivor audience was like, nah, that wasn't that impressive though. He's not a very good winner. And so the legend of like winning out until the end of the game by winning immunities kind of like diminished, I think, a lot. And so I think now we're seeing people like Brad, who is, tying the record for immunity wins and then not winning the game. And now Chrissy, who is tying the record for immunity wins and not winning the game. I think that's largely because of this devaluation of immunity wins in general. And Aubry, you're disagreeing.
I just could not disagree more. I don't think that it's like a pattern thing. I think that it is all dependent on the particular combination of people. So Brad, for instance, the game was over, and that's why I voted to try to vote out Brad when they took out Andrea, is that I could sense it in him. It was like a crazy animal. It was like, I'm going to win every challenge and I'm going to get to the end. And I felt that he was going to do that. And he did that, but his social game disintegrated in the final days of that game. So I don't think, there are certain things that are like micro interactions that we don't see on TV. And that's why I'm looking at it from a different perspective of like, I was there as Brad dominated, and he had been so socially great. I even had a confessional of in the merge of Game Changers, or right before the merge, when I said that Brad's the most genuine person here. And I honestly felt that way until all of a sudden he wasn't anymore. He went nuts at the end. He was hungry. The way he was talking to Ty, I couldn't take it. And I love Brad, but it wasn't because people didn't value his immunity wins. It was because of his social game.
So,
and I'm just saying it's not a pattern. It depends on the people. And as far as micro interactions, with all due respect, I understand what you're saying about Chrissy did know facts about people. I really liked what Ryan said. You're listing facts about people. And that's kind of how I felt. And I'm really sensitive about the social game, because the feedback that I got is that I had no social game. And after a lot of introspection, a lot of therapy, and a lot of thinking about stuff, what happened with me is I had such deep relationships with certain people that it really, really hurt when I screwed them over. So for me, I thought Chrissy had enough of a social game, as much as Ben. I remember that scene with Ben being like, Devin, you got to get away from Ryan for this reason. And they're sitting there together sharing information. That was a social move for me. In the same way, Chrissy's relationship with Ryan was a social move for her. But I also saw some micro interactions with her that are things I would have never done out there. Certain ways she talked about people, was confrontational and camp to them. To me, I just didn't see the social game like some other people are seeing, but I think she played an amazing game, and it's insane that she won all those challenges. I think she's one hell of a strategic, smart player who was on the bottom and found a way to fight her way back and pitch an argument that people wanted to work with her still. But I think we're elevating her because we're frustrated. I don't think she was robbed. She says she wasn't robbed. I would never
Oh,
say
she
I
has
was
to say
robbed.
that, and you have to say that. I mean, no offense,
That's
but
your opinion. I
Well,
don't
no,
feel like
that's-
I was robbed. It's
Okay, well, that's
Survivor.
fine.
That's what I signed up for.
I'll say it then. I feel like you were robbed, okay? And I feel like Chrissy was robbed, but that's okay. I mean, that's my opinion. It's okay. You don't have to freaking agree with me. I can say it, okay? This is my thing. Can you imagine, Taryn Armstrong, for a second? Let's switch the people for a second, okay? So let's say that Ben is the one who's pulling off all the immunity challenge wins, and Chrissy is on the bottom fighting for her life. And every time she finds an idol, she comes to tribal council and does the like the Chrissy bombs. Can you imagine how the jury would have responded? They would have said she has no social game whatsoever. Like she doesn't have any self-awareness of how she's coming off to other people. Like Ben gets so much slack from the jury because he's a guy. He gets to do that shit because he's a guy. Okay, he had no social game whatsoever. I don't even really think he had a social game at the final 8 because they were already talking about voting him out. They only didn't want to do that because they didn't want to lose the numbers. But there was still a point where they were thinking about getting rid of him. I just don't understand how the jury felt for this.
There are different things going on here. So the robbed thing, maybe it's because I've had to come to terms, whatever, with the game. And maybe there are certain places I won't let my head go because I can't, like, I have to move on with my life. But I will say, I 100% agree that women are judged differently. I was often told that people didn't see my game and I had to hide it. And a big reason for that was because I was placed on the brains tribe. And I knew that being like the intelligent woman was going to be an affront to these men. And I firmly believe that Scott Pollard couldn't stand me because when he poured water on the fire, I knew exactly what he was doing. And I wasn't going to start a fight with him because I was at the bottom at that point, and the best play I had, the only option I had at that point was to be calm, level-headed, and be the alternative option for other people so that I could stay in the game. So I do agree with you that women are without a doubt judged differently in that they can't be, They can't be contrary to the egos of some kinds of other people in the game, if you know what I'm stepping in. But that said, I still think that Chrissy and Ben played very different games and very similar games, and that their social game to me wasn't amazing. It was who valued which of their things more.
How's this for kind of
what's up, Brent?
Something that I've talked about before, Big Brother 18, where Nicole Franzel ends up being our winner. She didn't have the best social game in the world, but something that I've kind of talked about is that maybe the fact that she didn't talk to people all that much and that she wasn't in with a bunch of people and had a bunch of relationships with people kind of helped her in terms of their perception of her game. I feel like maybe a little bit of that is coming into play here, where I think the reason Joe votes for Ben is because Joe feels vindicated because Ben had stood out as this big guy that like socially he had been, outcast and like you got to go after Ben. He is King Arthur, blah, 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 blah. And then when Joe expresses that to everyone and they take him out instead of Ben, Joe now feels like you should have listened to me. And
that's what his entire exit interview was that. I mean, let's be clear about that. I knew where Joe's vote was going because the day after he got voted off, he was on with Rob Sesternino and Dalton Ross and anybody else who would listen on Twitter saying, can you believe these 3 idiots over here voted me out of the game instead of Ben?
Yep. And I feel like, Joe is like the very clear example of that. But I think there's also, I think that affects people even if they're not expressing it, because I think this is something that happens often. If there is somebody that is called out, like you need to get this person out of the game or they are going to win, that person usually gets more credit in the end because people want to be proven right that they called it. And also I think it gives them a certain amount of respect just in general, because it's like, you have a history of looking at that person as a winning contender. And then when they make it to the end, it's almost even more impressive. Like, I thought you were somebody that could win and you also made it to the end. So I'm automatically giving you an edge over somebody else who maybe had a better relationship with me, but seemed like you were laying under the radar a little more.
I think most juries, not all, tend to vote for the winner who validates their own game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's really about the story you tell yourself. Like, I think that obviously some people, they look for, this is something we've talked about a lot. Like, do juries tend to vote for the person they like more, the person they respect more? And I think it's probably a combination of both of those. But it's also, as you mentioned, Aubry, like who fits into my own personal narrative best?
Yes.
Like, who vindicates me as a player, as a person?
It's almost like they vote for the person who they're most comfortable having a beer with. That's what it sort of feels like to me. I mean, maybe it's not really true, but it feels like that. And I just want to say really quickly that as far as like Ben's interactions with the jury and insofar as Chrissy's interactions with the jury, it feels like to me that like Ben was not held accountable for any of his gloating whatsoever. When he idled Lauren out of the game, he was gloating right in front of her. When Joe was voted out of the game and blindsided, he was like, "See ya, wouldn't want to be ya." Like, I mean, he was a total ass the entire time. Chrissy, on the other hand, I sort of dispute the fact that she knew facts about people. Maybe the whole 34 on the ECT thing is a fact. But understanding why Joe doesn't want to get married and what his fears are related to marriage specifically, to me, speaks more of a personal relationship with him and not a fact. So again, I just feel like that she's held to a different standard.
Hold on.
What? Go.
Do you remember Joe and Chrissy going at it in the shelter? Like, it's like we're forgetting all these other episodes that happened. They were at each other. It was not like they were like frickin' frack.
I understand that. But on the other hand, it seemed like he was over it by the time he got to the jury. And he also had problems with Ben, where Ben and him were just like screaming at each other because of Joe bringing up the Marines. Never mind the fact that when it's for his own advantage, Ben is fine bringing up the Marines in front of the jury. If $1 million is on the line, sure, let's bring up the Marines. So I felt like he was a little hypocritical when it came to that. And I can't believe that Joe didn't call him on it.
Yeah. I'm just saying that I think there's something that is lost in translation. That was a big lesson for me after Co-Wrong, is that it's not the relationship you have with people when you're having conversations with them. It's how you ultimately make them feel. And I acknowledge that sometimes me being nervous or having the anxiety at the beginning didn't make people feel very comfortable. I'm just saying that it's about a feeling in your gut, and it's not necessarily about the things you know through a conversation verbally.
Well, I mean, I'm coming at it from a different place than you, because I've long ago just thought you were robbed of that game. So, I mean, like, and that's fine if you don't want to let your mind go there, but I feel like you were, and there's nothing that you were going to be able to do to change.
Well, I think it's a completely different experience. I think it was a completely different circumstance than the one.
I mean, I can sort of sign on to that. My biggest problem is that honestly, this is even more so than the Final Four bullshit twist, is the fact that I feel like the jury voted for who Ben is as a person and outside of the game, not who he was as a contestant. That is my biggest problem with this, is that they listen to him and they're like, well, I mean, we don't really like you. You've had no social relationships whatsoever. You've had to survive on idols the entire time. And oh, by the way, let's not even bring up the fact that there was never a clean point to get him out of the game, because idols were hidden left and right for him. I do believe that, honestly. I'm going off track now. This is a tangent, Taryn. I apologize. But like, when he was going to interview and then coming back there, like, well, why didn't you follow this guy? You know that he's the one target left in the game. He found that idol when he's coming back from interview on the trail, when he's not allowed to be followed in the first place. And then the last idol that he found was underneath the raft, where, oh, who just happens to sleep there? Oh, it's Ben. I mean, like, seriously, whatever. That I feel like that they were at least hiding it in a place where he's more likely to find the idol, but whatever. I'll set that aside for a second, because I'm so annoyed at the other thing. Like, here's the thing. Okay, I'm the child of a combat vet, and I'm a vet myself. I did not feel great about Ben bringing up PTSD in front of the jury in order to garner votes. There, I said it. I didn't like it. I felt like it was icky, and I can't believe that the jury actually voted for the person who he is outside of the game rather than the person who he is inside of the game. Because
you should have said the stuff that Sarah Lucina said, and she would acknowledge it to you. And I think she is one of the best winners of all time. Underrated, because as she says, I'm really boring on camera.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Look, it may not have been. He may not have intended to do that, but the result was the same. And I mean, Taryn, did you feel great about that?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I felt like the jury was basically prompting him to do it, or that's the feeling that I got because he gave his final speech, which was pretty
terrible.
bad. And I don't remember who it was. I think it may be Joe or Devin was like
Joe.
Yeah, it was like, hey, we were kind of expecting more from you, Ben. Like we were hoping for like the Jeremy Collins or something. Like give us something emotional here. And that's when Ben was like, I don't know what else to
I'm here for my family. That's the thing. He never spoke to anything he really did in the game. And why is that? Because he had no agency in the game, Taryn Armstrong. He had no agency in the game whatsoever. Okay, see, so instead, he's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to talk about my family. I'm here for my family. This money could be really good for me and my folks. I mean, like, my kids could use this to go to college. I've never had this much money in my life. I'm here for my family. That's what I've been doing this for this entire time. That's all he talked about. Okay, you go back and watch that. There's not an iota of social game or strategy there. There just isn't. Okay, and I feel
there's
like
more to the story then, because
then
they all wanted him out. They all wanted him out for episodes before the finale. He clearly was a strong player. Like, I don't know how all of a sudden.
I think it was a strong personality.
Final twist, like Ben had no game. They were all saying he's going to win the game if he gets to the end. He's going to win the game. Guess what? He won the game. They all knew it. Chrissy was a great player and knew he would win it. Devin knew he had to go too. Ashley was talking about blindsiding him weeks ago. You can't say he had no game. That's just complete BS.
Okay, I won't say he had no game. I just think that he's like, here's the thing. I think that he is stronger as an avatar for them within the game. And what I mean by that is they're like, okay, well, this person has a story and we need to make sure that they're out of the game. Because if that kind of person gets to the end, we know that kind of person typically gets a lot of votes. And that's why. That doesn't mean that him specifically was doing anything great within the game.
They were talking about him as a threat in the game, not because he was a Marine.
Well, I mean, like, it's sort of like if you damned if you do and damned if you don't. I mean, they were trying to get him out at the final 8, but after the final 8, they never had a point where they could get him out.
Exactly.
I mean, they voted for him like what, 3-4 straight times, Taryn, and like they just can't get him out of the game. So
that's impressive to me. I'm sorry, I think that's friggin' impressive.
So you really think
like it was impressive? Like I was always on the bottom, and I took my shit and I took care of it.
Like, do you
and
really
I found
think?
A way.
You really think?
Yeah. Sorry.
That finding immunity idols, it's fine. You can be that way. Because I'm that way. Like, I mean, like, you really think that like rummaging around in the dark and finding a necklace with some shells on it is as important as having agency and control in the game and winning immunity challenges? I just can't find that.
How all of a sudden is work ethic and scrambling to find something you know is out there all of a sudden not important? Because I was told that all of these things about how I played and how I wasn't social, and everyone says you didn't have a bitter jury because some people value something more than other. Maybe the jury valued someone scrambling in the dark more than they did immunity challenges.
It's certainly possible.
Argue that.
I guess I'm here saying that they shouldn't. Okay, so I mean that's my issue. You know, like
they shouldn't.
They should.
But isn't the whole thing online now with like Co-Wrong and this drama where it's become like Michelle and I are friends, but we're like not even people anymore? Isn't it become this whole thing of like, we can't say a jury is bitter because everyone values something differently? Like, isn't that the common knowledge?
I mean, like, I feel like it's okay to say a jury is bitter. And yeah, I want, like if you know that a jury is going to be bitter, like if Michelle's like, you know what? I know that these jurors do not like Aubry, and I am going there. So I know she probably played a better game on paper, but I'm going to take her because I feel like I can beat her. Because I don't, that's because what's what happens at Big Brother. People take people to the end because they got a bitter jury. You know, like Josh is going to go to the end. You know what?
Paul didn't take me. I saved myself with fire.
Paul is the better player, but I'm going to take Paul to the end because I feel like that the jury is more likely to be bitter against Paul. And you know what? He was totally fine winning that way. So what the hell is Michelle's problem? That she's like, oh, I don't want to win the game with a bitter jury. Hell yeah, give me the $1 million with a bitter jury. I'll take that any day of the week. Like, seriously, like that is like the ultimate... Like, that is the ultimate triumph to me. You know what? I won because of a bitter jury. Like, those people were so pissed off that they still voted for my dumb ass when I was up there. Like,
oh my God, I want you to play so bad.
This is amazing. I literally
I
tweeted.
don't ever get this heated either. People do not see this Aubry when it comes to.
I'm
Well,
loving it.
again, I warned Taryn ahead of time. I'm like, you really sure you want to be on with me? Because I
This
don't know.
is everything I
I've
hoped
been
it
real
would be.
nervous. I know. I have a sassy side, but I save that for my confessionals. Not whispering in front of people and mocking their intelligence in front of me, Chrissy, when I'm playing with them. Sorry. I save the S talk for when I'm on a walk.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't like. It's so weird because I feel like Ryan. Again, I go back to the fact that Ryan probably had more social agency in the game than anybody, and yet it was really not looked at. Like, it's the era of big moves, Taryn. Like, you've got to have a big move on your plate, and if you don't have one, then they're just not gonna take you seriously. Like, I was actually really surprised that Chrissy lost JP's vote and got Dr. Mike's vote. So, like, I mean, I'm looking at like if just these two votes would have switched, then she could have still won, even with all this bullshit that was happening, and yet they still they fell for it. Lauren, JP, Cole, Cole, you're an immunity challenge beast, and yet you didn't vote for the girl who absolutely blew them the hell away. Like, it just disappoints me that they did not vote for her when I feel like that they should have. But whatever, that's fine.
Wait, I want to say something about Ryan though.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that it's interesting because a big argument I had was that which didn't end up making the show, was that my biggest, the thing I did the best in the game was that I was the glue between alliances. Like, I was the person who's able to bring like Debbie together with the Sydney and cobble these weird ragtag groups of people together to make things happen. And I felt bad for Ryan because he really, to me, his arguments when he started like fighting Chrissy on stuff, I was like, yeah, you were the glue. It was through you. You did that work. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves in Survivors, and someone does the work, and like, I can reference several people, like Neil thinks he had a social game. That was all through me. I was the glue because he didn't know how to talk to people. I love him to death, but people were like, who the hell is this? And I'm like, let me soften that, repackage it, and market it differently to you. Let's work together. Like, I thought that's how I felt. I felt like Ryan was the core of initiating the like ambassador relationships with him and Chrissy. Was Chrissy the strategic powerhouse? Yes. Can she make an argument better than everyone and win every challenge? Yes. But I did feel like Ryan didn't get credit for what he did because it happened earlier in the game, so people forgot.
Yeah, he didn't get credit for what he did because, Taryn, they said that Ryan was taken to the finals. He didn't earn his spot there, which, by the way, is complete bullshit, Probst. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, seriously, like, Probst is like, you know what? That third spot will not be given. It will be earned. I'm sorry, honey. Do you not look at your winner from like 5 seasons ago, Natalie Anderson, who, by all accounts, would have been the third finalist in the room. Seriously, Jacqueline won immunity. She surely would have taken Missy to the finals and would have forced Natalie into a fire off with Keith if this twist was in play. Like, seriously, that was the person that they didn't really want there. Like, Jacqueline was praying it was a final 2 because she knew beating Natalie was probably going to be really, really tough. So the person who was given the final spot was Natalie Anderson, who, by the way, was an amazing winner. Like, I mean, she ran that game from top to bottom, but she was given her spot at the final 3. Jeff, shut up.
He said that?
Yes. He, like, in the episode, he's like, that final third spot, like that third spot, that spot will not be given. It will be earned. Well, like, what have you been doing for 34 seasons previously? Like, the people that got into the third spot, like, I mean, I understand, like, the Beckys and the Sundras of the world, like, that was, like, given.
How about me? I earned my spot with fire, so exactly. I'm not so mad about the twist because I had to do it.
The other thing, well, like, I mean, like, just as a logistical thing from my point of view, like, I really don't want to see fire every flipping season. Like, I really don't. Like, I think like
it represents life. Why can't you go back to the original basics of Survivor?
I guess it's okay, but like, again, I feel like fire is more important when it's like the occasional 2-2 tie, because that's interesting. Like, when Ty switched his vote and saved you, Aubry, that was drama. That was interesting. It was like, oh my God, she actually got him to switch his vote. Like, he was maybe going to vote her out.
That was a lot of work.
Exactly. And you did it. And it was great. And it was so interesting to watch. But now it's like, okay, it doesn't even matter. There's no vote off at Final Four. It's just like, you take who you want, and then y'all make fire. Go ahead, girl, bye. You know?
I gotta sidetrack. I was texting Boston Rodney, who is like the most entertaining person on the planet. Yes. I want him to have his own show. Poor guy cannot watch those fire making challenges. I don't know if he can ever watch like a Survivor finale again, because it's like fire and he's like, oh man, this is bad. I can't watch this. I can't watch this. I just feel bad for it. Like Rodney can never watch a finale again without like downing a.
And I have to say, just Taryn, I'm curious, from an editing standpoint, were you convinced that I thought Ben was going to lose the fire making challenge? I really did, because they had showed Devin making fire earlier in the episode and he did it. They even made a point of saying like, "Oh, good job, Devin! Like you whipped that up real fast." And then like he had performance anxiety in front of everybody. What happened?
Nah, I mean, I was pretty convinced Ben had the even after Ben lost the immunity challenge, I was like, he is going to survive. Like he's going to make it to the final 3 somehow. And I was not on the edge of my seat on that.
Here's the thing too. Honestly, the fact that Final 4 immunity challenge was so amazing. Like all of the drama was sucked out for me, because I knew I had heard about the twist ahead of time. And so I'm like, well, this doesn't even matter. Like, I mean, like if Ben loses this because of the upside down U, he's still going to get another chance. Like there's no, like, so the show has done themselves a disservice by removing one of the most iconic moments of the game, the final immunity challenge. Now it's not so iconic anymore. Like it's just another challenge.
Which is funny because Ghost Island is all about those like huge mistakes, right? Like I feel like that you could have been one of them.
How great would that have been? No offense, but there's like, you could look at the Survivor history of people who are littered, like Kathy Vabrick O'Brien, like she's like fixing her bra, and Leah's like, you know what, your bra's starting to show. You're starting to show your titties, girl. I might want to watch that. She starts to fix it. She falls off the stump. Girl, bye. You just lost $1 million because you weren't afraid, because you're afraid to show your tatas. Like seriously, like if he would have lost $1 million because of the upside down U, that would have been great. Like, I mean, I know that it would have been terrible for him to live with that, but he would have come back. Like, he could have gotten another chance, and even if he didn't, it would have made great television. But instead, they decided, you know what? Jeff is like, we need to fix all of that, because you know what? I don't think it's fair that the people at the Final 4, the people like the 3, just turn to the 1 and say, we don't want you here anymore. That's what Jeff said to Dalton. And I just have a problem with it. Like, where is the line then? Because the contestants are going to adapt to that.
Yeah, the problem I have with this twist, and obviously I have a huge problem with it. Everybody knows I hate twists in general.
Yes.
And
oh my God, it's so boring.
But the problem I have with it is like, because I'm not super opposed to like implemented twists where they're known ahead of time and they change the format. The veto in Big Brother is one of those twists that ended up being really, really cool and worked out really well. The problem I have with this twist is that it even if it is known beforehand, I really do feel like it does just it encourages you to drag even more goats along to the end, even more people that you feel like you can beat in the end and that won't be able to do well in fire. And it just feels cheap. It feels like I should be watching Opposite Worlds or like one of those like dumb whatever. I mean, Opposite Worlds is obviously amazing, but
Karen, it's BB Over the Top.
BB Over the Top. Yeah,
they stole this twist from BB Over the Top. It's exactly how they did it on BB Over the Top. Oh my God! Like, I mean, like really, I mean, I love my BB Over the Top, but still, girl, stop.
Yeah, BB OTT was like the super cheap version of Big Brother, who many people look at as the super cheap version of Survivor. And Survivor just like not only went down a step, but like skipped the middle and went all the way down to the bottom with OTT grabbing this twist. It takes even more away from the social game. I'm not a fan.
Aubry, what do you think?
I got a question.
Okay.
I wrote this down with my manatee. Look at this. Composition notebook.
Oh, wow.
Manatee. They're having tea because they're chill and they're fine and they're calm and they're not worried about any of this because Survivor's not a big deal and doesn't mess up your life, right? So question. If I had lost wrong 4-3, would the jury vote out twist that we did not know in advance of that challenge be scrutinized in the same way as the fire making challenge the other night?
Probably not. Like I mean, like if Devin had won the fire making challenge, I wouldn't be talking as much about this twist because I'm like, well, things worked out the way they were supposed to. So I mean, like it's only because fate was altered that we're perusing it a little bit more.
No, that's my question. If I had lost 4-3 and the people upset that I lost, if I had lost 4-3, and
we'd be even more pissed. Yeah.
Would we be as enraged about that twist as we are this twist.
You know what it would have done?
Yeah. Go ahead, tell me.
It would have united the Michelle it would have united the Michelle truthers with the tie truthers. I'm not talking about your tie. I'm talking about TIE tie. That all the people who thought there was going to be a tie this season because of what Probst is saying. Because like I mean, it would have been great. Like that would have been so cool. If there had been a tie this season or even your season, but obviously it was not here nor there because you didn't lose 4-3. You lost what 5-2.
No, but that's a good point. Is that like we didn't have advance notice at the beginning of the season that there was going to be a jury vote out. So I'm bringing that up as like a larger point of like, I guess for me, I can't feel as enraged. I just want to explain why I can't feel as enraged about it. Is because I've gone through this whole analysis of why I lost. Will I use the word robbed? No. Would I have voted for me? Absolutely. I ran that ish, if you ask me. And all this stuff about I had no social game and Michelle did is like, if you were there, sorry, disagree. But I just lost my train of thought. But I'm saying the point, now I really lost my train of thought talking about myself. But my point is just that like, we weren't told about it. And I went into Survivor. And when I hear these new twists, like the other night when I heard that, I was like, ugh, this isn't an advantage to Chrissy. If it's a format change, it's definitely an advantage to know ahead of everybody else in that you have a couple hours to strategize. But my mindset wasn't like, oh man, she's like effed. My mindset was like, okay, I'm a player in the game, got to push through. What do? You do this, you try that. If you can't do that, you got to fight for that. Like, I'm not saying it to like suck any wang or however you said it. It's literally for me, I watch it. I was like having panic the morning I woke up at the finale, knowing I had to sit through a Survivor finale because I can't stand watching the finale.
You know what? I can answer your question.
Watch the wait, let me finish. I can't stand watching the finales. I can't stand watching the end. So when I heard that, I was just like, wow, Chrissy, sucks for you. Feels like my entire game can go wrong. How are you going to handle it? Not like, oh, I got screwed by a twist. Does that make sense? What I'm saying, like I just see it from a different, through a different psychological messed up Survivor mindset. We're all perfectly normal people.
I think that those of us who were upset about your loss and go wrong probably were more relieved that it was a juror vote off and not a final two, because that's what I thought when you guys were headed to that challenge was like, oh my God, it's a final two, because we didn't know that season whether it was a final three or final two. We knew there was some twist at the end. So we're like, oh shit, it's a final two. And Michelle won that challenge. So girl, you'd been out. So I was like praising Jesus. I'm like, okay, she's still in. She's still in. She's still got a chance. Maybe a little handicap, but she's got a chance. But to me, it shouldn't have even mattered that Neil was there. Like they should have voted for you 7-0 or maybe 6-1. But whatever. Like,
I do think that saved me that it wasn't a 2 in that point. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of things thrown at you in Survivor. When you sign pounds upon pounds of paper, you know that you are on a television show and that things are going to happen. And to me, I always felt like everything was real because that's Survivor. Like I expect to be working my ass off from day 1 through day 39. And the reason I didn't hate the twist, unlike everybody else on this planet, was not because I was like, oh, I'm a vested interest in this person or that person. Like, quite frankly, I don't really care who wins. I hope everyone's fine. Like, I don't know the people. I hope that the right winner wins. Absolutely. Because it's upsetting when they don't. But now I lost my train of thought again. This is terrible. I'm so heated. Look what you did to me. But never mind. If I think of it, I'll tell you.
It'll come back to you.
I think it's an interesting perspective because I think that you're right in the sense that like if I were playing the game, I think I would have the same perspective of like I expect to get screwed around every corner, and I probably wouldn't be that upset about it as a player, even though I feel like that's the reverse of how a lot of people look at it. Like, oh, the players must be so pissed that they get screwed off, but as viewers, it's entertaining. But I'm completely opposite. I would completely expect to be screwed over, especially if I played Big Brother. But even if I played Survivor. But as a viewer, as a fan of like the game concept and like watching the game, I actually don't. I'm not entertained by these twists, and I dislike what they do to the game. And so that's what I recognize that is not what the majority of people do. Like I love these moments when twists cause fans to get really upset because
I'm
they're
glad you
finally
like
on my side for once. Where normally I'm just like the whining person who's complaining about like the sanctity of the game. But now everyone agrees with me
I
for a brief
agree,
moment.
but can I just say this, that like,
Yeah.
can we not pick people into totems and make them these people that are not people? First, I remember what I was going to say. The reason I wasn't as enraged about the twist is when I watched Survivor, I believe that if you are lucky enough to have the gift of this experience, which no one deserves, you do get lucky when you get on. If you are lucky enough to have the honor of playing this game, which has been a part of my life for many years with my family, you should be playing every single day from day 1 through 39. And I can think of several people where I'm just like, this sucks, man. You're just coasting. And like, that is real. Like, I still think back to Denise being like, I wanted to play with people who are real competitors. Like, that's the reason why I wasn't as enraged about the twist. But I know it's fun for the controversy, but I do want to just say that it can be difficult. And I was very nervous about coming on this because I know the viewers are the people that make the show stay on the air. And I feel like I am so lucky I had this experience. But there are also these tremendous communities around Survivor that are wonderful, but tend to sometimes like elevate people where they're no longer people and can no longer have a say. And I personally have felt that I have had no agency in like the person I am. I feel like people in the Survivor community, like I love them and I love the support, but you can often forget that these are real people. And like what happened to Michelle sucked. And selfishly, that really sucked because it ended up blowing back on me. Like we have never had a beef. You know what I tell people now? I'm like, you're mad about the Indico wrong? Don't blame me, Ty, or Michelle because we didn't vote. So all I'm saying is that like I understand it's fun, but it's also just like,
oh no, like yeah, I get you for real.
it's gonna
I'm with
blow
you.
back on Chrissy like it did me.
I don't know.
I completely agree with that because while I do enjoy people getting mad at the twist, I
Oh, of
definitely
course.
don't enjoy people getting mad at Ben because
I haven't tweeted Ben once, you guys. Okay, I'm just saying.
Fine, you're
but
good.
there is a really, really extreme reaction. Like you go to the Survivor subreddit and it's like, move over, Bob Crowley. We've got a new worst winner ever by far. He's the worst person in the world.
I do not see that. I don't get it.
Right. And like people are very, and I understand that it's like, it's in the heat of the moment and people are like really amped up on stuff. But I do think that like you can confine your hatred of the outcome of what you watched to the twist and the mechanic and the show. You don't have to blame like obviously Ben had nothing to do with what happened. Like he was just super happy that he got another chance. And that doesn't make him a better player. If you want to criticize his game, be my guest. But I do think there's a very extreme reaction. And honestly, I think that there is even a bias against Ben's game that is happening right now. And I do think that it'll come back around eventually. I think that we'll start to, there was a comment on Reddit that was like, I can't wait until like a year from now when people are like, does anyone else feel like Ben is underrated? And people will be like, yeah, people are really hard on him. Like that's totally going to happen. So I do think like there's a personal level to this that I think that everyone could, ease off just a bit.
You know what? There's two things really quickly. You know why I really feel bad for Chrissy is because, Taryn, we did a podcast like 3 weeks ago where I was like, Chris just needs to get up in front of that jury and say, you know what? I came here to kick ass. I kicked ass. Give me the damn money. And you know what? She basically said that. She favorited that tweet when I tweeted it. And I was like watching for it in her speech. And of course, like they can edit and they can show whatever they want. But there was a point where she was just like, you know what? I am awesome. I came here. Like I amazed myself and I did great. And I'm like, you go, girl. That's exactly what I want you to say.
I liked that. I liked that. I didn't feel like
yes.
she had to say the mother thing. All of a sudden, this like mother narrative, I was like, you know what? That's awesome that you're a mother and that is a job and that is just as important as every other job people have. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and I appreciate that. But that definitely felt like not congruent with me to the rest of Chrissy. I would have loved her to be up there and be like, do I even have to talk?
No, I think you're. Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like I mean, for the most part, I think she gave an amazing final tribal performance. I think she's an amazing speaker.
So did Ryan.
Really
Boy,
well. Ryan was great too.
He was so good.
Like the person who did the worst was Ben. Like if Ben had given a speech like Ryan, I would have been like pretty much okay with his win. Instead, I'm really kind of steamed about it.
I think it's like it's something that it's hard to like grasp how difficult it is to give a performance at Final Tribal when you are the person who is immediately singled out as you don't have a chance. We're not going, like they were so hostile toward Ryan. They were not willing to really give him much of a chance at all. But he really like he worked his ass off and he really, I think, did a pretty decent job for the position he was.
I will tell you
put in.
this. You know how good of a job he did? I've watched every season of Survivor, and I turned to my mom because I was watching it with my mom. I said, does he have a chance to win? Like, could he win like 3-2 or something? Like, is there weird something? Because I was into the tie truther people. Like I was like, maybe this guy could actually win. Like, I know we've been making fun of him and stuff. My mom's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, I don't think so either.
And like, how often is that person who is going to come in third just like immediately written off and then they're silent for the rest of Final Trial? Like
poor Tarzan, that's what happened.
Exactly, yeah. But Ryan really like he kept inserting himself. He kept being like, do not forget about me. And from what we heard from Devin, it did win Devin over. Obviously, maybe Devin was planning on it anyway, but he said that he was won over by Ryan's performance. So good on Ryan. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It would be awesome if it was more money, but
yeah. And I do think Chrissy did really, really well. Like really like one of the best Final Tribal performances I've seen in a while. But I do agree, Aubrey, that it felt like she was trying to compete with Ben's emotional appeal when she
it felt for her. Yeah.
Whereas like maybe the better option was like sure, emotionally, Ben's a great guy. I would love to give him the money, but if you look at it, if you look at the game, I did more. I deserve it more. And it probably wouldn't have won her the game. I'm not saying it would have made the difference.
No, those
2 or 3 votes.
They weren't changing their minds. Like Ryan said, nobody changed their minds going into like they were. It was always going to be 5-2 to 1. That's how it was going to be. No one changed their minds after that whole 3-hour Final Tribal Council. So whatever.
You know what? I beat myself up for really, not to make it about me, but like I beat myself up for the entire year I had to wait, even though I was like, yeah, I lost. Because I had this weird balance going into Tribal, and I imagine Chrissy felt it too, where I was like, I can't attack Michelle because she's like this sweet, pure, hasn't like pissed anyone off because she hasn't really helmed any votes. Sorry, Julia was going home anyway. You didn't do that. Anyway, whoops, I said that. But I was like, I can't attack her. They'll be really mad. And then I was like, should I have attacked her more? And then I was getting from the jury in the year between like all these mixed messages of like, yeah, you could have fought for yourself more, but that time you did go back against Michelle, like that came off as really nasty. So it's like, all right, which is which? And the most comforting thing for me, and I hope Chrissy finds some solace in this, and I haven't watched the Jury Speaks videos, but Jason texted me at 4 a.m. after the finale and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for what I said. I was like, Jason, that was the biggest closure I ever had. You, Julia, and Scott all said that I played a fear-based game, which made me realize that you were all part of like a cult and you're never going to vote for me. Fritzy, you could not have changed those votes. And you played the best game you could for you. And there's nothing you could have done with that group of people in that moment in time in that particular place.
Yeah. Something else that the chat has brought up, and it kind of brings us back to Brent, what you were saying about like, was this more about who they were outside of the game? Somebody mentioned that like, how does class play into this? Because Chrissy is at least perceived as like this upper class kind of aristocratic woman, whereas Ben is kind of like blue collar. He's a vet. Do you think that played into the perspective as far as like, Ben needs it more, and then there's also like we're more willing to forgive some of Ben's faults because we can relate to him more? Like, Brent, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, but I have less of a problem with that because I feel like that's always been that's always had a place in Survivor, where like even like on like Spencer's season when he made it to the finals, they're like, well, we're not going to give it to some kid who we think like his parents have money. We'd rather give it to Jeremy, the guy who needs it for his family. And we know Jeremy outside of the game. Like I have less of a problem with people awarding it to players what they are outside of the game and returning player seasons, because you know who these people are. Like it's you can't, it's hard to separate that. But in a season like this where like he could be totally lying to you the entire time, I have more of a problem with people deciding, you know what, we're gonna give Ben the money because like when Lauren went up to vote and she's like, maybe you can do some good for some other vets with this money. Maybe he will. I don't know. whatever.
I gotta tell you, one of my least favorite things as a player, and I remember in Co-Wrong sitting there one day when it was like someone shared their sob story. It was, I don't know, it was like day after the merge, like probably around when Michelle actually went to tribal council. And they were like, someone said their sob story, and then someone was like, my grandmother had Alzheimer's. Oh, my brother had cancer of the pinky. And I was like, I hate you, all of you. Like, it's this weird thing of like a story where it's this funny thing where like sometimes it doesn't matter, but then people get super wigged, and it's a really good way to put a mark on someone's back.
Yeah. Well,
Is the story.
Honestly, I would love for people to bring that up along the way, but you know, because it would seem to me to be a viable way to get them out of the game. Ben was wearing it on his sleeve the entire time. You know, Mike talks about the fact in his exit interview, Dr. Mike, that he really wanted to throw a challenge when he was at Yawa, but he couldn't depend on flighty Cole because Cole was all over the flipping place, and A, wouldn't throw a challenge, and B, he couldn't depend on Cole to vote Ben out even if they had gone to tribal council. And Mike was like, you know what? I should have just done it. I should have gone for it. There's two places where Mike's like regretting parts of his game. That on Yawa, he's like, yeah, I should have thrown a challenge. And number two, at the final five, when he was in his gut, he was like, I really want to vote for Devin. I told Ryan I'm going to vote for Devin. And then I didn't vote for Devin. And it was, you know, it was my demise in the game. So, but like I said, like from the final 8 on, Ben was winning this game because there was no point to get him out. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, I guess I'm just over the idols a little bit. I don't think they're all that special anymore.
That's fair.
And I also agree.
I'm like, Co-Wrong, not one idol was played.
Here's the thing. I'm also with Dr. Mike when he said, you know, I didn't have Dr. Mike was like, I didn't have as big of a problem with the Final Four twist, but then idols should stop at 6. Like there should be a point in the game where you actually have to play Survivor, where you actually have to either win immunity or you have to have a majority of the tribe say, you know what, we want to keep you around. And there wasn't a point in the game to get Ben out of the game. And I feel like that's why people feel like there's a little stink on this win.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I do agree with that. Although I disagree with the concept that like immunity wins are somehow more Survivor than immunity idols. I feel like immunity idols have been in play since essentially Survivor 11. So like the idea that they're somehow less quintessential Survivor just doesn't ring true with me.
Buddy, I feel like there's a difference, Taryn, because back in the day they made them harder to find. You actually had to work to find some of the shit. And nowadays it's like, you know what? You just dig it up and it's right there. Like, I mean, like it takes 5 seconds. Like, I mean, you can find it idle in no time flat. So I
couldn't find one.
I
jumped through that crap.
I feel like there's a bigger emphasis on it. And what I was going to propose, I know I'll save this for now, but if this happens again, I feel like that there might be a point in time where, you know what, the game of Survivor is always evolving. Let's bring the jury to the immunity challenges. Let's let them watch because they have no idea what happened. Like they don't know how hard Christy worked for those 4 wins. Okay, so like they get to actually see the theater of the immunity idol being played at tribal council, and that's why they love it so much because they're like, oh my god, like it's amazing. Like you're gonna like totally get the people who got us, and we can't wait for you to do that. So like it would also seem to me that it would be cool if the jury could at least witness the immunity challenge. Again, I don't think it's a problem because it's like it may be a one-time thing, but like if idols continue to play an increasingly more important role in the game, I feel like it's maybe incumbent upon the show to balance that out a little by letting the jury watch. You know, like on Big Brother, they get tapes of all of the challenges, and you get to see how things happen in order to give people credit for what they've accomplished. And I feel like
Michelle got credit for winning immunity challenge.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So like, not like they don't see it; they see the necklace around your neck.
Yeah, and I do think there's a point there. Like I think that when immunity idols are being played, wearing the immunity necklace, it feels much less valuable. Like when Chrissy comes in there wearing the immunity necklace and then proceeds to fail to bluff Ben when he then does the Ben bomb, and he's like, you thought you could trick me into not looking for an idol? Well, I had it before you even had tried to trick me. Like that makes Ben look amazing, and you completely forget that Chrissy's wearing an immunity necklace. That said, I don't like that the Big Brother players watch the competitions. I don't think that the competitions are that important. I don't want them to be swayed by like the emotional toil that somebody goes through when they see if their U is upside down or not. I wish they had more information in general, but I do think that it is imbalanced in that sense that like Ben definitely was like he got a lot of reward from being able to make people look like fools 3 tribals in a row, and then not only make them look like fools, but give himself the label of underdog. Like I am the ultimate underdog. They're trying to take me out every week, and every week I am spoiling their plans, and that's huge. I mean, that's so huge in the eyes of any jury. Like we've throughout the history of Big Brother, Survivor, any of it, being the underdog and being able to spoil the plans of this massive alliance, the overdogs, whatever you want to call them, the favorites. It's so huge, and
it's a skill too. It's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% a skill, and I think the fact that he was able to parlay it that way. I remember I got feedback. I was so cagey in tribal, and he did that. It sounds like a bunch of malarkey to me times 1,000. Good on him.
Yeah, and it's like it's very important to know your role in that. Like Ben was able to, and he was very clearly playing to the jury. Like during that tribal when Chrissy is talking about like, well, I found it. I was like, oh my God, this is so big for Ben. Like everything that's happening right now, Ben is playing to the jury right now saying, yeah, this is just devastating. I was playing for my family. I really wanted to take it home for them. It would have changed their lives. And in that moment, he's making the jury feel like, oh, poor Ben, you're going out with respect though. Like we like you. It's a shame that you don't get to bring the money home to your family. And then he turns around and says, actually, no, I'm turning this around on them. And that's a way bigger moment than even like if he hadn't milked that, like, because when you feel like somebody is about to lose, that's when you finally feel like, okay, I can let go and I can feel empathy for them. And then once they feel empathy for them and he drops the Ben bomb, that's when he has their hearts. That's when he has their votes.
He got them. Can I also say something though on my point about the social game is like, there was no need for Chrissy to be smug when she brought out the idol that she had found right before he played it. Let's talk about that. Like, what if Ben was on the jury? That was not good jury management on her part. If she thought Ben was in fact going home. I was told I had absolutely no social game.
I agree.
I've been repeatedly, but how is that good social game to rub it in someone's face and then look, he got you? That ends up like, I don't know.
I agree. I think that if this twist doesn't happen, Devin makes it to the final 3, Devin beats Chrissy, then the vast majority of I think if that happened, I think the vast majority of people would be saying, like if there were people that were saying Chrissy was robbed, I think there'd be a ton of people out there, look at how she handled Ben. Look at how she handled these people. It was terrible. That's why she lost jury votes. But because of the circumstances of how she lost, people aren't criticizing her for those things. And, I think rightfully so. I think there's no reason to like go out of our way to criticize her for those things.
No. I'm just saying that's why Ben is not an unworthy winner.
Right.
I'm seeing people saying, Ben, worst out of 35 seasons. Like, not even close.
No, and I haven't.
Flipping kidding me. Get over it. No.
I people have tweeted that to me as well. And Taryn, you will, I hope, note that I did not respond in a typical Brent fashion. I said, you know what? I think that's probably like we're probably a little bit too close to the finale in order to make a valid judgment. Like, let's give it some time and see how that settles, and then maybe we can think about it. I mean, like, I'm on a podcast in order to talk about the finale itself and the players in the finale and what I thought about the mechanisms in the game and the way the jury voted. But having said that, I mean, like, Ben is he was a okay player. He was like, he was controlling like the first 2/3 of the game, had no control during the last 1/3 of the game, somehow managed to claw his way to the end. I mean, to me, he's like a lesser version of Mike Holloway. And yeah, that's about it.
I wouldn't say a lesser version of Mike Holloway.
I feel like Mike Holloway was more like there was a grudging respect for him. Like, I thought that was more of an interesting win because they really didn't like him, but they felt like they had to give him the money. Whereas Ben, like, they kind of liked him and it was just an easy vote for them, So I feel like that's less interesting to me.
But they never kind of like a lady though. If she.
Well, Brent includes how interesting people are in their rankings as players.
I love it. No, I love it.
But I do think that people like, listen, I am the first person to say like, you were saved by a twist. wow, that's a bad mark on your game as a player of the game, in terms of your ability to succeed in the game. Being saved by a twist where you definitely would have gone home otherwise is definitely a huge demerit, right? That being said, there are people that are like lumping Ben in with people like, Evil Dick, Jordan Lloyd, Rachel Riley from Big Brother, like these people that like were greatly helped. Sarah Hanlon were greatly helped by
Oh my
twists
God, you just couldn't let it go, could you? You just
throughout
couldn't
the
let it go.
season.
I haven't
whereas
seen her season, but she's one of my favorite people of all time. Just
Yeah, she absolutely loves me, and she freaking hates Taryn.
she's a great person. She just really hates me.
Yeah. You're so hateable.
I guess
how
so.
could anyone hate you? You're
She's
like
literally the only person I know, like real person I know, like not just Twitter person, that like actively hates me. Anyway, the point is, like, Ben, you can say that the idols helped him out, and that's kind of BS, especially if you are a conspiracy theorist that thinks that he was given the idols or it led to whatever. That being said, like, the idols are an established part of the game. To say that idols were twists that saved him, I disagree with that concept. And then the twist that did save him, he was also like one upside down, like multiple, like 4 times, like seconds, like inches away from winning that immunity himself. This wasn't like a huge gap where week 3 he was about to go home and then saved, and then week 6 he was about to go home and then saved, so on and so forth.
I have 2 questions. I wanted to know what you guys thought of the final immunity challenge, and also I wanted to make sure that. I wanted to ask Aubry, what do you think about the viability of the argument that they should have been following him 24 hours a day? Like, he shouldn't have been able to find these idols. Do you really think that has merit? Because I don't. But go ahead.
hell yeah, they should have been watching him. You gotta be kidding me.
I just
kept playing them. He kept playing them. They'd go out of rotation. They'd come back. Like, I made an active decision not to follow people because I was public enemy number 1 in Game Changers the whole time. So I couldn't. But that was a strategic decision for me. But like, when the guy keeps playing the idols and they go out and they come back and you're surprised, like, give me a break. Be Andrea, be a big pain in the ass and follow them and be like, hi, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like she did to Malcolm. Yes, that's on you.
Yeah, but look what happened. Andrea got voted off quickly after that. I feel like if you're the person who's doing that, then you're sacrificing some of your social bonds because people are like, well, you're not with us. You're more like off with the outcast. And that's really like, isn't that an indictment of somebody when they're like talking with the people who are supposed to be voted out? Like, why are you with them all the time? Like, we know you're following them, but it's
a critique. You got to know what you got to do in that moment for your season in that time and place with that group of people.
I feel like
and
that
if
maybe
you judge wrong, boom. That's your problem.
Maybe, honestly, Taryn, it might have been Chrissy's responsibility because she sort of like seemed to have control over everybody. She should. I feel like maybe at that point she should have been like, you know what, we're all gonna take shifts. Like, you need to follow him right now. Like the fact that they all started sleeping there, and I know they're all tired. She's like, look, you just need to follow him for 2 hours, and then. I'll take over for the second shift. Like, I feel like
that is your responsibility.
Somebody needed to maybe do that. But again, the hiding underneath the raft where he happened to like rest his head, girl, bye, whatever.
I just like, even where you sleep, that's your responsibility. That's on you. Sarah, one of her best moves is she moved where she slept, and she slept kind of alone by the fire. And she moved where she slept so we couldn't tell who she was aligned with, because where people sleep tells you everything.
Okay. In terms of like following somebody, and that might be a detriment to your game. It's very similar to the dilemma that Devin and Mike were in, where like casting that the extra vote against Mike, like maybe it benefits him strategically, but it might hurt him socially. It's the same thing with following people, when they're looking for the idol. And man, when they came back from that tribal, and Ben immediately runs off to look for the idol, and they're talking amongst themselves like, "You think he's gonna find another one? Nah." And then they just go to bed. It's just like, even in that moment, I didn't know if Ben was going to find that idol or if he was going to win immunity. I knew he was going to make it somehow. But I was just like, what are you doing? Like, how could I honestly didn't think another idol would be hidden, but I was still like, you need to be on him right now.
I mean, like, he was their favorite and they wanted to make sure they hit another idol. Taryn, come on.
I was obviously wrong. Like they do hide idols on that day. I wasn't sure how the rules worked. But yeah, like
the thing is, like, he has a dick, so obviously they're going to want to try to keep him in the game.
Well, no, I mean, as far as I'm aware, that is an established rule that they will rehide that idol, and it's, I think, been done before. So,
I
listen,
think it's funny. We talk about this like there's a right way and a wrong way to play, right? And we
Right.
judge things based on social game, strategic game, like it's all black and white. And then people get really mad when their faves get cut. My fave slave queen was Rob, blah, blah, blah. But here's the deal. It's on you in that moment when people are sitting there hungry and Sierra Dawn Thomas is writing pancakes on her like cloth with merge paint to decide, is this a time to up my social game, down my social game? What kind of social game do I need to play? Do I need to play the kind of social game where Brad Culpepper is going to understand what I'm saying by saying, oh my God, would Monica like this? Or do I need to go and have like a cry with Ty about how hard it is? And like, it's all on the people there to know the players that they have, the circumstances that they're in. Is the risk better to follow the person, or is the risk better to stay with the rest of the group? There's no one way to do it. And that's the beauty of it. And I think when we get mad and the controversy happens, it's like, this is the way, that's the way. But like literally every argument that I've heard, like to support why Chrissy should have won, is also an argument that's like been against me or for me. Like it's not a black and white. There's no right way. It's not multiple choice SATs. It is an abstract painting. It's like a Picasso. Is no right way. And it depends on which Picasso painting the crazy people like at the end. Can I just say Desi was my favorite jury member of all time.
Who?
Desi.
Oh, Desi. Yeah, well, she was gorgeous, but like, I mean, she had some good. Okay, and she had some good questions, but I still didn't like her vote. But whatever. That's
Sorry
fine.
to derail.
No, it's totally fine. I'm more disappointed in Cole, but whatever.
I think that people they look at it from especially Survivor fans actually. I feel like it doesn't happen as much with Big Brother, and I'm not sure why, but they tend to very much, and maybe it's because we lack so much information, but like we often look at things from a results oriented perspective where it's like they did this wrong because of the outcome. They did this wrong because of the outcome. Where like you can make correct decisions and still lose the game. You can make correct decisions and still, lose a jury vote. Like it's not straightforward.
Nope.
It's not like black and white.
Nope.
It's all a matter of degrees. And it's it's a difficult job to be somebody that criticizes gameplay. Like I think Chrissy did an amazing job,
She did.
Here we are like picking away like bits of her gameplay or defending parts of her gameplay, when even then, like as careful as I think we're trying to be, we still don't know so much of what happened. So we're probably very wrong about most of it anyway.
We are. And like, I have a question for you. How you're disappointed with Cole. Why are you not impressed with Ben for handling the question that Cole had for him about how Cole was hurt about how he accused him with the stealing food? Why are you upset with Cole and not impressed with Ben for answering that question in a very Todd Herzog kind of way and getting that damn vote on his side? So tell me why, Brent. Why?
Because
that, like, I think I remember from Cole's exit interviews that he was convinced that Ben was not upset with him for real until he saw the episode. So Ben really had misted him, I suppose.
Boom. Social game. Sorry.
I'm going to answer the question. I mean, because I felt like it was a meatball over the plate. I really felt like it was a gimme. Like, I mean, of course you're going to, give the guy what he wants. The guy is asking, hey, like, I would just like it if you could clear my name. I got to vote for $1 million and it's an 8-person jury. Could you clear my name in front of all these people? Ben's like, oh yeah, man, it's totally cool. Like, I mean, I wasn't trying to make you, wasn't trying to make you a bad person. Ryan's like, I don't really remember that. And of course, then we never really got any resolution of that. So no, I'm not really.
Wanted. That's a skill. Ozzy said to Coach, softball. If you admit you didn't play with honor and integrity, basically I'll vote for you. Coach didn't do it.
Right.
That's a gameplay.
I guess. Well, I mean, like, I feel like as somebody who got to the end of the game, they should be able to do that. So to me, it's more of an indictment of Coach's gameplay in that analogy than it is praise of Ben's gameplay. But like, I mean, Cole was talking about the fact that he was like, that was his whole game, was he was a challenge threat, and he was like so psyched about that, and he was so amazed at Chrissy and all that she did in the game and all that she accomplished. Like he couldn't do what she did, and yet he didn't vote for her.
In the fact that you think Chrissy should have won, you can't lose the good things that Ben did. And I see the good things that Chrissy did.
I see the good things that he did. I just don't think they're as impressive as maybe you do.
I'm not even saying I wanted any particular person to win. Damn, I would have loved to see Devin go to the end, because I thought he was someone who was able to quietly meander between alliances, and I was worried for him if he got to the end. Other people didn't see that. And
it's so amazing though. I'm more upset about the fact Chrissy didn't win, but if Devin gets to the end, I feel like he has a real real case to make, to the jury.
Yeah.
So
I mean, basically, my perspective, obviously, I haven't been able to determine this based on what the jury has said, but I think it's kind of safe to assume that Devin probably has a pretty good chance to beat Chrissy if he makes it to the end, considering she lost to Ben. And I think Devin...
I don't know. Ryan was convinced that if Devin goes to the finals, that he gets Dr. Mike and Joe, right? I think that's who it was. I Ryan was convinced he had 2 votes, and they weren't 2 votes that he already had. So I think it would have been kind of weird. I do that was one of the most frustrating parts for me about the reunion, which wasn't a reunion. Terrible. Freaking terrible. Probst, I'm okay if you don't talk to the people on the back row. That's fine. I don't want to talk to Katrina. I don't want to talk to Patrick. Girl, bye. But I'd like to talk to the people that actually had some impact on the damn winner. Can we talk to them for a moment? No, instead, we want to make sure that you know that Ben is a good guy. So let's bring out his Marine buddies, okay, who he says he's really close to, but yet he hasn't had a conversation in 12 years. Let's bring them out and have a moment on stage. Yes, let's do that. Whatever.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the montage. I'm fine with bringing out the Marines. I just why did we need 5 previews of Ghost Island and then 6 commercial cuts and
with audience members? That girl in the audience who wrote that, shut up, I don't want to hear from you. Does Probst realize his talk show was canceled? Does he know that, Taryn? It was canceled for a reason. Nobody wanted to watch a girl. Bye.
Can I say something positive?
Yes, go ahead. Oh no, we don't allow that on this show. Sorry.
I did like how when people were voted out, like Dr. Mike and then Devin, that we got to hear from them in real time. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. But
I was nervous because I knew it was a live show and I didn't want them to spoil something. I felt like when Devin was talking, he was like, Ben really did, and
he really deserved it.
Yeah, turn that down a little bit. We don't know the result yet. You do, but we don't.
Yeah. I was distracted by his hair. I didn't care.
Oh yeah, he was really looking good, Aubry. Really looking.
Yeah,
good.
Devin was like, yeah, Ben really deserved it, and Jeff cut him off. He was like, Ben's a great guy. Ben's a great guy.
You noticed that too. I saw that.
But yeah, the most frustrating part for me is that we didn't, because honestly, I'm happy for the cast when they go back to them at the reunion and they get to have their say. But even more important to me is information, and I want to know who would they have voted for if Ben doesn't make it to the final 3. That is very important information when it comes to evaluating the gameplay of Chrissy, Ryan, Devin. I want to know who was really robbed of a win there.
They didn't want to do that because they don't want to feed the fire of the people who are pissed with the twist. They don't want to show you what could have happened, that your favorite could have won, because they want you to be happy that Ben won. That's the whole point, Taryn.
Taryn, who would you have voted for of the final 5, Taryn? Tell us. We're drowning out Taryn. He's like the voice of chill Zen.
I am the moderate of the panel, I think.
Good at it.
But yeah, I think I would have voted for Devin. I think that granted, I think that Chrissy and Ryan also both played very good games, but Devin is the one person that I felt never really lost control, was never really vulnerable until the twist. It was pointed out that basically he got 1 vote cast against him, and he made an amazing read and countered it by voting Mike, and then Chrissy and Ryan support him over Mike, and they take him over Mike, and that's great for him. I thought that his plan to use Ben as a double agent was amazing. I thought that just basically throughout the entire game, he was always coming up with great plans. He had really, really great social bonds, and I think there's a really good chance that Devin is the person that was robbed of a win here, and that he probably beats Chrissy. But again, I need to know what happens there. If Ryan gets a couple votes, maybe that who knows how it happens. Based on just like guessing at this point, I would guess that Devin wins that over Chrissy and Ryan, but I would really like to know a lot more. I'm not solid in that at all. But yeah, my vote would have been for Devin. I think that Devin really played a great game. And that said, when he was like, I am happy about this twist, I love that I get the chance to prove myself and make it to the end. I'm guessing that is him like not complaining for a reason. Like
he knows he knows what side of his bread it's buttered on. I mean, come on. Like
I tweeted out like good for Devin, like towing the line here and making sure that he has a chance to get asked back. And then Eric Stein replied to that tweet saying, man, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I feel like you know what? I feel like you should be more like Cass and just say fuck it all. Like really, like I don't care like if I get asked back or not, because Cass just tweets funny things to me and I love how she goes after people. And I feel like that your chances of being asked back are probably slim to none. I mean, he's a really cool guy and maybe they'll invite him back.
Devin? He's a new Joey Amazing.
All right. Well, then maybe he'll come back. I don't know. I feel like we get a lot of people who are like, oh, like they should come back, and then a year later, we're like, who are they? Yeah, what?
There's a small window for that archetype.
Yeah,
like,
it really is. Yeah,
like Jay is competing with that, and I think that the longer.
Yeah, Jay was on Millennials versus Gen X, and I'm like, oh my god, and like they're like, he's the new like guy that everybody loves, and like people like. I mean, I barely remember him now, and I love Jay, but like I remember him more for the fact that he's on a podcast with Rob, not that he was on Survivor.
I would also say, like, I don't know if it's Devin trying to pander. Like, I've seen a lot of people, like, if they disagree with the like fandom that's like super into strategy, be like, "You're trying to pander, blah blah blah." It's just because you want to go back again, and it's like, no, maybe because if I obsess about the fact that I got screwed, I won't move on with my life and I'll end up in rehab or in some gutter and messed up till the end of time because I want to do things that are beyond Survivor in my life. Just saying, just because people are chill doesn't mean that.
No, I don't think he's just towing the line. That was being funny. Honestly, I feel like he.
No,
like,
you are funny, but you are funny.
Of all the people. Yeah, of all the people who like this could have happened to, I feel like he's probably like they got really lucky that it was him because he's just such a sweet guy. Like,
can you imagine Cass?
I know, right? Can you imagine Cass?
That'd be amazing.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Oh my god!
Something else I tweeted out was like when they had Chrissy reading that quote unquote advantage, and then she stops when it's like you will choose to say, and then they cut to like the sun is setting as she finishes the letter. Like I was she must have been just screaming expletives like you cannot do this to me, like begging them to change the rules, and then finally get her to read it later on.
I would have taken it if I was her and throw it in the trash, like throw it in the fire, like throw it in the fire. I don't want to play it.
I'm not reading this.
I don't want to play it. Yeah, whatever.
You can't make me read it.
Yeah, I really would have done that. I would not have towed the line for them on this. I really would not have done that. I swear to God. And you know what? I would never have been asked back. And that's okay. Okay? I would never have been asked back. And that's okay.
It is okay. Because guess what? When you go back on Survivor, everyone thinks it's like, if I get asked back, my whole life will be magically, unicorns will come out and it'll be wonderful. No, you're more messed up and more pissed when you don't win.
Exactly.
It ain't that great. I mean, like, thankful, yes, but you end up more messed up.
Yeah.
Unless you decide to take care of it. But even when you take care of it, you're like, F you, Sarah, stop lying on your son. Oh, I love her. She called me right before this finale, and we had a great talk, and I'm just like, you suck. I love you.
But yeah, I really felt for Devin. I felt for Chrissy. I'm really, one thing I'm really happy about with Chrissy is that like it seems like everyone has come around, or at least most people have come around on Chrissy.
Yeah.
Which I'm very happy about because I really didn't like the portrayal that she had, a few weeks back.
Right. Yeah. 4 weeks ago, everybody was like team anybody but Chrissy.
Pretty brutal.
Yes. So, I mean, if anyone is going to get like the robbed goddess status, I'm happy it's Chrissy.
It's Chrissy. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes. Like she is the G.oddest, like she is. And she, I feel like there's something to be said for that. Like, I mean, like you get a lot of love and support from people. I don't know, Aubry, maybe you can speak to this, but I mean, maybe it's going to get old for her. like hearing all the love and the you should have had it should have been you. I feel like that I feel like she can handle it. Like, she seems really, really thankful for the experience. She's been a fan for 16 years. Like, I feel like, you know what? She got the whole experience. She got 39 days, and she did everything she could. And she rejects the fact that she didn't have great social relationships because she got people to do what she wanted. I mean, if they're a little butthurt by the time they get to the jury, then that's on them. So whatever.
She has a good perspective. I have a lot of respect for her of how, like, she was very much like me at the, like, not a great very beginning. I thought it was interesting they showed that. And, like, she held her own. Like, that woman, she's 47 and she's winning 3 of the 9. Like, you've got to be kidding. 4?
4.
Did she win 4?
Yeah, she won
That's
4.
insane.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
She won the last 4, right?
About.
Didn't she win the last 4, Tara?
I think so.
That's insane. Like, she should be proud. Like, really. I do have a question, though, before we move on.
I think, no, because, it had to be her, because Probe said when we started the episode that the only person left in the game, well, of course, it could have been somebody else. I think she won when Joe was voted off. That was 8 people. Then somebody else won at 7, right?
Yeah.
No.
Ashley? Did Ashley win one?
Ashley won.
I know
You're
Ashley
right.
won one.
Ashley won at 7, then Chrissy at 6, Chrissy at 5, Chrissy at 4. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Question, though. Dr. Mike, I have a theory that Dr. Mike could have won if he went to the end with Chrissy and Ryan. That jury was very healer heavy.
Yes.
And he pissed off no one in a season of, bizarrely, like, I don't think of it as a season of polarizing characters, maybe because I was on a season with the people I was on a season with, but I think Dr. Mike could have won.
I think Dr. Mike thinks that for sure, and I think I am inclined to believe it.
I really think he could have won.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe it as well. But he was never going to get to the end with Ben in the game, though. And I don't think he still thinks that even if Ben got to the end with him, like if it was Ben, him, or if it was Ben, him, and like Chrissy, let's say, that he would have made it to the finals. But I don't really buy that. I feel like Ben still beats him.
I mean, I do think like there's a decent chance, like, look at the final 5 vote. If Mike had decided to throw his vote on Devin, and he says that he was contemplating it, and then, unlike Devin, didn't decide to go through with it. If he had, though, there would have been 2 votes on Devin. Mike would have been saved. And without the twist, Mike is in the final 3. If we think Mike beats Ryan and Chrissy, then Mike wins. Even with the twist, all he has to do is beat Ben at fire. He probably won't.
That's all.
Yeah.
Apparently, I have to say, that fire making challenge lasted like 4 to 5 minutes. Like, it was over like that. Like, I mean, Ben just got it and never looked back, which is amazing to me. Like I said, because Devin was making fire every day. But, again, when you're doing it in front of people.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a very good chance that Mike came very close to winning this game. And I think that, it's probably a bit deserved. He did get played a few times. He certainly...
Well, he was freaking terrible, Taryn. Come on. I love Dr. Mike, but he's a freaking terrible player. He never knew what was going on. His play, with the coconuts and everything, which, again, I have my own problems with that because I'm like, I've never seen a more insignificant twosome who got more airtime out of a name than these two.
I love those two so much. Joe and Mike, I love it. I love Joe. I can't get enough of Joe. Oh my God, he's
really. I just can't with him. Maybe I'm too much. I don't think I really like him, but I think there are parts of me that are like him, where I just love to hear myself talk, and he's just like that because he's like over there on the jury and he can't talk, so he's just like funny. Busting out. So he's making all these gestures like this and like, oh
yeah, it does remind me of someone.
Yeah, I know, right?
I would love to see Joe and Michaela on a tribe. I would die. I would die to see that combination, like Joe, Michaela, Sandra. I don't know. Tony, oh my God.
Everything.
Joe's crazy. I enjoy Joe. And Lauren Rimmer,
you know what, Taryn? We need a season we need players versus players. That's what we need.
Oh my God, that's so good.
I will say, also, in line with being happy about, Chrissy's robbed goddess status, there's an irony to the fact that Ryan ended up being the low-key social player that didn't get enough credit when Reddit hated him so much for being the typical quote-unquote game bot, nerdy character that was going to be playing up big moves and everything.
Right.
I hope
anything
that,
but, yeah.
You're right. And I hope that the image of Ryan also softens as time goes on, because I think he's an underrated character right now.
I would like to propose something. I think that Reddit or Rob as a podcast community, I don't know what it is, but I would love to see a study, like a market research study, being that I'm a marketer. Or I don't know how it's done, but I know you guys do lots of things on Reddit, like post my Bumble profile that you can do. And I want to see a tracking of a season where the sentiment of Reddit toward certain players is tracked from their bio released by CBS through every episode and every talk of Edgic, which I cannot stand, all the way through a year out after their finale. And then I want everyone in Reddit to sit together with Taryn, nice and quiet, or the RHAP community, and analyze those results. And we can talk about another H, which is hypocrisy. Boom, said it. I love you guys.
I do think they have like a player rankings every week where they vote, which is basically a popularity contest.
Like Joker's updates for BB.
Yeah, kind of,
Yeah.
a little bit, but they don't follow it after the season, which I think is the more important statistic. But yeah,
Reddit,
it certainly goes all over
look in the
place.
mirror sometimes. Look in the mirror, and Taryn can moderate that because he is Zen AF.
He's very zen.
A few years ago when I still believed in arguing on the internet, I wrote out some big Zen posts on the Survivor Reddit and Big Brother Reddit. And I actually found one recently. It was dug up by somebody and reposted on the Survivor Reddit, and they were like, "Look at this theory by Taryn about juries." And I was like, "Whoa, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life." Anyway, though, happy. I hope that Ryan. He seems like a cool guy. I hope that people are a little more kind to him.
My question about, I'm sorry, the final immunity challenge. Did you like this challenge?
Oh yes, I thought that was. I thought it was a really great. I thought it was really compelling watching. Like, I thought that Ben was going to make it through either way. And I thought that Ben was going to win the game. So I was hoping that he won that immunity because I didn't want it to be through a twist. Right. So I really was like on the edge of my seat, like, come on. And if he had actually lost there, if he had lost because of an upside down U, and then just like, you can see it in his face, like this is $1 million, and if I drop this, I might lose $1 million. And when he goes, when he has the upside down U, and he runs to the thing, and he's looking up like, oh my God, I just won $1 million. And then Jeff says, no. Like, no. So crazy. Like, watching that on his face, it's amazing to me.
Like, just to be clear what happened there, like, he did realize what happened, right? Like, he ran around to the, like Jeff said, it's wrong. He ran around to the front. He looked at it, because to me, he didn't really look at what was wrong, but I think he did see what was wrong. And then but he couldn't just switch it. He had to go back and unbreak it, right? And that's when it all came tumbling down.
No, well, I mean, just in general, like you saw the elation on his face, right, and then Jeff says no, and it crumbles, and that's like this is a deep pull, but the Amazing Race season 1 finale, like one of the teams is on the subway thinking that they won the $1 million, and they get off and they find out they hadn't. It's heartbreaking, but I love those moments because it's just so raw and emotional.
Oh my God, what was the name of the two gay guys who were like stuck in Alaska?
Oh
my God. Yeah,
I can't remember the name of them.
I miss I just, as a quick aside, I miss the Amazing Race days where like they didn't give a F. Like they just nowadays they they make sure all the teams are together. But back in the day, man, like you could like have a finisher and there's still people stuck in freaking Italy. Like
that was season 1.
I missed the mole.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Anderson Cooper at one point?
Oh, the mole is everything. I still watch. I have the DVD of Celebrity Mole Hawaii. Kathy Griffin played amazing on that season.
You have to watch Kept from VH1. If you haven't seen Kept, that's got to be my favorite reality show. It was Jerry Hall, who had been married to Mick Jagger, was looking for a kept man. You have to find it.
All right, I'm all up for it.
You're on that. We'll podcast about that. Anyway.
Okay. And again, so just finishing off just about the cast. Like, I loved this final 5. I know Brent is like harsh on Mike, but I loved Mike as a character, and I think that he did do some decent things down toward the end of the game. And like, a lot of people are really down on the season because of the ending of it. And I understand that. And I am also frustrated with the fact that it was easy to call that Ben was probably going to win this game pretty early on. And then throughout it, it's kind of like the Mike Holloway problem, only not quite as bad because there was a lot of other stuff happening and a lot of doubt that was thrown into things that I don't think it was nearly as bad as Worlds Apart in terms of he's obviously just going to win out through here. Like, it was like, how is Ben going to do this? Like, is he going to win immunities? Is he going to get idols? Is he whatever is going to happen?
Right. I will say really quickly, just as a kudos to the cast, and I'm sure they don't give a F, but great job on keeping the secret about what happens this season.
They were incredible.
There were no spoilers on the internet. I was so mad because Game Changers was spoiled for me. Not that I'm not blaming anybody, but just like it was spoiled.
People.
I know, right? So I was like mad because I feel like I had no hope. I mean, I only tuned into like Final 7, Final 6 because I was like, well, how did these 4 women lose control of the game? Of course, I know how it happened now. They did such a great job of not sharing what happened, and because of that, I was still convinced up until the bitter end, up until when Jeff is reading the votes. I'm like, I still think Chrissy's got this. And, that's what I love Survivor for, is like the experience, the elation, and the disappointment of like who I'm rooting for in that specific moment. So good job on them.
I also have to say, I thought the cinematography was insanely incredible this season. And also the music score. Like, I listened to those little things, just some of the shots and some of the music, I was blown away. To me, it's like a National Geographic.
Aubrey, they gave us the full intro. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like, how cool was that? So I'll give them props for that. Thank you for that. That was so great to see.
A lot of hard work.
I know it's available online, but it's not the same as seeing it on the TV show. So thank you. I'm glad you just give us the super fans out here. You give us a morsel every now and then, and we appreciate that. Yeah, it's
cool. And I like those little things. It's even like they had the Devin shot when he was doing fire, which is like the same shot they had earlier in the season.
Yes. Yes, that's why I thought he was gonna make it. Oh God.
Or the scene with Ben in the dark, the sepia tone or whatever.
Yeah, that was really good.
It was like so beautiful.
It really was.
Anyway, I'm a sucker for that stuff.
Vader Girl in the chat points out the 4 girls blasting Chrissy in their exit interviews was also pretty spoilish. I got to agree with that. That was one of the reasons why I was like, Chrissy can't win this because they wouldn't be bashing her so much in the exit interviews.
Yeah, so stop doing that. Of course, I didn't fall for that though, so whatever.
And then also, I'm not anti-Joe, but I do think that there was a lot of spoilery talk around Joe. I think he spoiled his own boot, and I think he also.
Did he? I haven't been paying that close attention.
He can't keep his flipping mouth shut.
Yeah, it was. He pointed out a lot, like, you really should have taken out Ben, guys.
Stupid. These are Dumb and Dumber over here. Didn't take out Ben.
Yeah. But I loved the final 5. I loved every single character left, and it's rare that I'm I'm feeling like I could actively be happy with any single one of these people winning. And I was, and I really enjoyed how it played out. I didn't like the twist. I think it's a mark on an otherwise very great season. I really liked it. And another thing that I obviously should point out is that Brent, thank you for keeping my seat warm for about a month or so with the draft. But I am back on top. It's like I never left.
Actually, I had to. I should have remembered who Melissa picked, but I honestly had to go to look at the draft board to find out. Okay, who had Ben again? I'm like, her. Fine.
Of course I did. You think I'm going to lose twice in a row? Come on. I'd never lost until Josh.
I can't believe I won by I can't believe that your streak not being 9 in a row is only because of Cody's vote against Paul. That's really amazing to me, actually.
It's crazy. It really is. I had a secondary draft that I was playing, and I also won that. There were 9 people in that one. I even won that one.
Wait, did you pick Paul? You picked Paul in Big Brother?
Well,
whatever. Yeah.
He wasn't available to be picked because he was not in the game when we did the draft.
The fans on Twitter ruled that Taryn would get Paul because Julie said that they switched the people. So he had Cameron.
Gotcha.
And then he switched him. But I have always said, if he had won it, there'd have been an asterisk by it. But if
you
he
want-
had won, like none of us would have won. So yeah.
Yes, I still would have remained undefeated because
Still
nobody
would
would
have
have
remained
beaten me.
undefeated, right? Exactly. So
And
that
if
was
you want to be
so
technical, I chose the draft order, and if Paul was on the table, I would have had myself go first and pick him because he was a vet. But anyway, enough draft talk.
But enough about you.
I wouldn't have won anyway because Paul didn't win. But I am back on top. I am the undisputed draft master.
They should have a fire challenge in Big Brother just to mess with them, like in the house. First to burn down the house earns their spot in the final.
Right.
Call it.
That'd be great. We do have some questions from the listeners. Let's see. From BB Boston, what are your thoughts on the value of immunity wins versus idle play? Always thought the challenge wins are greater, but don't know anymore. We talked about this a little bit, but like moving forward from here, do you think that immunity idols should be valued more, or they will be valued more? Like, what are your thoughts on that, Aubrey?
I think that's the same as saying that a jury should value social game over strategic and vice versa. I think it's up to the jury because we don't have better juries, right? Just saying.
For the
Sorry
record,
to be short, but like everyone's allowed to value Survivor as they want to value it.
yeah, I am a firm believer that there are bitter juries. That doesn't make their decision wrong. It's for me a descriptor of one of their reasons behind their vote.
That's
yeah,
nice
so,
that you're allowed to use that word.
Yeah, right, exactly. If you're saying like bitter jury, therefore I'm concluding that their vote was invalid, like,
Right.
you know, what are you talking about?
No, but like in Survivor, like in the same way that I think you go in knowing any twist can be thrown at you, you also go in knowing that different people value Survivor in different ways, which is why I love the final tribal format now, because it shows the outwit, outlast, outplay. So there's all different parts, which shows that whichever one you value most is up to you. You just have to start the game and be there at the end.
Yes. I don't really understand this question from John Rumsey. Is Dr. Mike Survivor's Glenn Garcia? Brent, do you want to take that?
I have no idea what that even means. Like Glenn Garcia? Like, I mean, oh, okay. I know what he's talking about. He's talking about the fact that Glenn Garcia thinks he was running everything. Like he was there for a day, and he's like, it would have been me, Rob. It would have been me. So I think that's where he's coming from, because Dr. Mike's like, you know what? I had this game racked up. Like if I had cast that vote for Devin, I would have won. Like it would have been me. I would have been the winner. Like he's like, I knew that we had to get Ben out. I should have thrown the challenge on Yawa. So like, I mean, in Dr. Mike's mind, he was running everything, and like we just didn't know it.
Just like Neil was gonna win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's always a couple people that are like, I would have won if only for those meddling kids. So
Gosh,
from
like,
the
we're like
franchise.
soulmates. Like, how are you not gay, Taryn? I swear, because I was gonna finish the sentence the same way. Oh my god, whatever. Go ahead.
From the franchise, how much of an impact do you think the Final Four twist will have on future players and their strategy? Do you guys think people will be less or more inclined to show that they can make fire? I know that's been talked about a lot, but I think there are a lot of other implications to how this informs strategy moving forward. So, Aubrey, what do you think?
I just thought that nobody's gonna eat the whole time because no one's gonna want to make fire, and it's gonna be great.
Oh, super sorry. Drop my phone.
No one's gonna move. The implications of the twist is no one is going to move. They're gonna revolt and not go to challenges because they've eaten nothing, and we won't have a season. No, I'm kidding. No, I think it's interesting. Like it's the kind of thing with like the evolution of the game. Like what's gonna happen with idols? How does it transform? I don't really quite know yet. What does that do for big alpha males at the merge, like, and the meat shield stuff? Like, I literally don't know. I have no clue yet. I can't think that far in advance. Brent, Taryn, tell me, what do you think?
I don't know either. I mean, I really don't feel like it's going to impact. I really don't feel like it's going to impact the game that much, because you have to eat, you have to survive out there, you have to be warm. I really don't think like on day 16 you're going to be worrying about, oh my god, on day 38 I don't want people to know I can make fire. But on the other hand, if there's somebody else who can make fire, you're probably less inclined to be the person who's like, you know what, can you teach me how to make fire? Because I've always wanted to do that on Survivor. You're probably more inclined to be the person who's like, yeah, what, you go ahead. you make fire, and I know nothing.
Right.
There was also a tweet from Josh Spence who said his thoughts on the impact of the Final Four twist. One is that fire making ability becomes a factor, and then also a player would have to take 3 goats to the end in order to lock in a win. And he also asks what are the other implications? And I really feel like, we've talked about how this was like a great benefit to Ben and how this might like help alpha males or something like that. I actually feel like it makes things worse for people who seem like they're good at challenges, because it makes it a lot easier to win out until the end. So, I think when the game started, it was often the meta that you kept in the good challenge players until the merge. Then they were the big targets. You take them out, so on and so forth. And then at some point, it was like, are they really big challenge threats? Because they're not really going to win out from the merge. And so you felt a little comfortable keeping them in for a little while. But I feel like it's going to go back to that. I feel like the big challenge threat athletic people are going to be targeted a lot sooner, because it's a much more real danger that they are going to win until the final four, and then they can win a fire making challenge and win themselves into the final three and steal the game from somebody. So you have to be a lot more cautious of those people, and those big underdog challenge beast characters that people are saying that maybe Probst wanted to keep in the game with this twist, I think are actually going to be hurt from it far more than they are going to benefit from it, because the only reason that Ben benefited from this was because they didn't know about it beforehand. If they knew about it beforehand,
I don't know if you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody tweeted this to me that the cast from Ghost Island is apparently going to know about the Final Four twist ahead of time. Taryn,
interesting. I had not heard that.
Maybe the chat room can correct me if that's fake news or not, but I was told, and I don't know how they would do that, but apparently they're going to know ahead of time, like it's Final Four, like, this is what happens. So I don't know. I'll double check that, but if that's true, then I feel a little bit better about going into Ghost Island, which, by the way, looks like a really fun season. And I love spooky stuff like this. Like, I've always loved Pearl Islands because like the dead pirates and everything. So I'm on board for it.
I wonder though what it's going to do, because I also think there's this effect at a certain point in certain seasons where if you have certain goats or too many goats, people start to target those goats because they know that they're the other person's like option to go to the end. And I've been on seasons where people are like, we got to get out this person. I feel like they can sometimes go before the final four, but in that like sweet spot of like 7 to 5 where you're like, well, this person's everybody's final option, so we got to get them out. So I wonder if that plays a part in it. As well. And I wonder if it's going to be, instead of configuring the perfect final three, it's going to force people to play a game where they're trying to get into the final three, which is how I had to play my first season, because I was always losing somebody like Joe or whatever toward the end. So I wonder if it's just going to make people scramble to try to get into the final three and try to play more aggressive games where they feel like I could go to the end and have to beat everybody. I wonder if it's going to flop. I wonder if it's not those alphas, and I wonder if those goats.
I feel like also, Taryn, the scenario you described where, you're like a person has to take 3 goats with them to guarantee a win. Hello, those 3 goats could end up in the final 3. Like, I mean, you know what? If you don't win a challenge or get taken there or win a fire making challenge, you're out in 4th place. I just hate the fact that there is no vote at the final 4, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, play this out on some like kind of the most basic level of strategy based on this twist. There's certainly higher levels of it, as Aubry mentioned, where you maybe start to target goats and so on. Right. But I think the base level play, like if you get players that aren't super well versed with Survivor strategy, then I think what you're going to see is, big threats targeted early on in the merge, and then maybe 1 or 2 players, like strategic good players, getting to the end with a huge amount of goats, and then those goats saying, why would I save you when I can save this person who's an obvious goat? And then that big player losing the fire making challenge, and that's a final 3 of quote unquote goats.
But can you have that many goats? That's my question for you. Yeah.
That's very true.
Even possible, well. Is someone a goat by nature of the fact that they're a goat, or are they a goat by the circumstance of their season? I would argue the latter, because in a season where there are certain, like, no offense to certain people in Co-Wrong, I would have been happy with them and been like, you're a goat, but I think in another season they wouldn't have been a goat.
I agree. I think there's very few players that are just goats in general. Like, there are very few players where you look at them and say, under any circumstances, you are probably not going to win a jury vote. Most people can, in some circumstances, win a jury vote. I think we've seen that play out a few times in different seasons of games. So
is he a goat? Would you, like, if you plopped Josh in Survivor this season in place of somebody? Is he automatically a GOAT because that's who he is? Or like he just like for me, I go to Big Brother and I hate to sorry to bring up Big Brother and Survivor, but like he was a GOAT for a lot of people in Big Brother. Like, is that by nature of the who he is in the fiber of his being? No, because look, he won. Like, it's
Right.
not. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like he was. I feel like they knew he was a GOAT and they still voted for him anyway. Also, it's a different dynamic in Big Brother because it's A or B, not choose one of the above.
Yeah,
so
right,
you know, I mean, you know, I'm sure Taryn's with me on this. I think, excuse me, Final 2 is so much cooler than Final 3 because it actually forces you to make a choice, and the person who is a GOAT, like I feel like, you know, if it was, I don't know, Chrissy versus Ryan, or you know, Ryan versus Devin, I feel like that there's just a lot more room to maneuver there. Whereas when it's a Final 3 and it's just choose one of the above, it just seems like, you know, I feel like people choose that one person. But
was Kagay on the last 2?
Yeah.
Yes. And that's one of the most frustrating parts of Survivor for me. Like, I think the most frustrating part is the lack of information coming from Big Brother. Like, I want to know so much more about the game they're playing, but there's not a whole lot they can do about that. The second most frustrating thing about Survivor for me is the Final 3. I want a Final 2. I find Final 2s to be way more epic, way more interesting, strategically interesting, entertainingly interesting. They're just better overall. And I do feel like this Final 4 twist is getting us even further away from a Final 2.
Even further away,
which is just really unfortunate. Like, there's just something so cool and dramatic about 3 people in an immunity challenge, one of them winning like some endurance challenge, and then choosing one person to bring with them. And are they going to make the right choice? And can the winner or the better player convince this other person to take them? Or can they win the immunity challenge? There's just, it did make for a situation where a lot of good players went out in 3rd place. And I think that's unfortunate for that particular outcome, but I think it's so essential to the game, and it's so fun to watch, and it's so interesting, and it's such a test of their abilities to like, can you get this person to take you? We saw that happen with Tony and Wu, and it was amazing. I'm so much happier with Tony's win, having convinced Wu to take him to the Final 2, than I would have been if he had gone to the Final 3 with Wu and Cass and still won. Like, it's a way better season because of that Final 2 for me.
Got you. That makes sense.
All right, so next question from Jill Robinson. How quickly do you think that producers hide the immunity idol after one has been used at tribal council? Aubry, I guess you might have some information on this more than we do, but I assume they're hiding it during the immunity while they're coming back.
I will tell you, I honestly don't know, because I looked for that damn thing. I looked under the shelter. I looked at the well. I looked for it, and I don't know. All I knew is when people were looking for them, and I had a feeling when they found them. I am not the idol queen. And I'm not saying that to evade the question, which I know I'll get on Twitter. I literally don't effing know, because I was just focused on going and playing my little gender role around the fire. Let me quilt and talk to the women, because the women say at camp, especially the second time.
Yeah, that's my question. I know that our compatriot Lita will appreciate me querying you this, Aubry. Like, the statistics for idols are not great for women. I think like 86 idols have been played, and only 17 of them were by women or found by women. Like that's a pretty big disparity. So, do you think there's why is that happening? Why is it only a 17 out of 86?
I truly think that I remember being out there. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking about my experience all the time. But,
that's cool. That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
I remember looking at Debbie at one point when we were still on Brains Beach and saying, oh my God, like these gender roles are really oddly playing out. Like the men do this and the women do this. And I think for the women, especially in Game Changers, like you felt compelled to like stay in your role of how you're supposed to be, which was generally like tending camp or getting the water or doing the food. And it was more like that's what you're supposed to do. And the men would kind of go out and do their thing. Like I would help with the physical stuff, but like I best not be away from camp too long, or I could get a buffalo would take me out. I have to go back with the wagon train and make sure the children are safe. Like there's this weird messed up thing where it's like, you can gather wood, but be sure to get the porridge ready. Like I can't even describe it, but it is weird. And in Game Changers, I was like, Suri, I would be like, I have to be with Suri, or like Sierra. We have to be like hanging. And it was also because we had Brad, and Brad, I love Brad. I think one of his biggest downfalls was that he took too much physical work on himself and then started resenting when people weren't helping, but he had already set the tone. It was like that was Brad's thing and this is my thing. And yeah, and you didn't want to be like, there's always, it's so funny. I used to make fun of people who would say there's a women's alliance, but there's always like the possibility if the guys start being complete a-holes out there that the women are just like, boom, middle finger, done. And it's like, you have to stick with that. It's weird. It's like you have your alliances, but then that like gender thing is like this odd fallback, even if it never happens. And you feel like sometimes you can't break that. Does that make any sense what I just said?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And it's really unfortunate too. Although on the other hand, if I was out there, I feel like I'd be making the porridge and tending the fire myself as well. So I don't want to go out there. I'm like, hey, there's snakes out there. Come on.
No, like I would go, but I remember when I went with Malcolm, I went with JT, like fake looking, like, I don't know. You don't have that target on your back. Cause in Game Changers, I couldn't even speak to someone individually without being told I was a snake and I was the only one scheming. So that was part of it too. I was the schemer, so I couldn't do it. So like, it's somewhat gendery, but it's also like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Bambly.
No, that was actually very interesting. That was something I hadn't
cool,
thought, like, because I've always been confused by that statistic, and I think that there's probably a lot of different factors that go into it, and I know that conspiracy is one of them. But it's interesting to hear that perspective. One more question from Christina Z on Twitter. What do you guys think of Ben's winning game in comparison to Yule's in Cook Islands? Both benefited from idols and late game twists that the other players couldn't plan for, yet Yule seems to be held in much higher regard than Ben as a winner. Brent, what do you think?
I mean, I just feel like there's no comparison. I really don't feel like there's any comparison. I feel like that Yule is such a more interesting and dynamic player than Ben is. Maybe dynamic isn't the right word, but I feel like as far as more as a solid Survivor player, I feel like Yule is. I mean, yes, he did have that idol, but on the other hand, his bonds with those four people, the I24, I think it was called, that was just something that you can't manufacture that. I mean, they had that bond, and I don't think that any of those four were ever going to turn against each other. He was able to, hornswoggle Jonathan into voting with him, and then the rest was history. He didn't need it after that. On the other hand, Ben needed it all the flipping time. Like if he didn't have it, he got voted for at the final 7, at the final 6, at the final 5. I mean, I know they didn't vote for him at the final 6 because he told him I have an idol, but they were gonna vote for him. So to me that just I guess I'm still a little bit old fashioned. It's really odd to hear me say that because that's not the kind of person I am in real life. But as far as Survivor goes, I really do appreciate the people who have control of the game the old-fashioned way. You know what? Getting people to agree with you to vote other people out. That's actually what a neat concept. But instead, the jury buys the theater of hey, I got something in my pants. Whatever.
I mean, it's frustrating when you say it like that. Like to me, my best move was when I got Ty to flip on Scott, and they didn't even want to hear it. So
yeah.
Can I just say something in the chat room? People are saying, why wouldn't you look for the idol? I would be looking with those guys. I want to say it's as much a strategic decision to know your role and not look for the idol as it is for the idol. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm happy with this dynamic. I'm not happy with the dynamic. Women should be judged the same as men. Every single day it pisses me off. But we still live in a world where it's 50-50. And sometimes if you play Survivor, you have to know your role if you want to win.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's something Michelle is good at.
Being with somebody like Brad had to be irritating because he takes on all this work and does all this work, and you don't want to be the person who's like, well, I'll help you, because he gets offended if you start doing the work for him because that's his job. But then later on he's like, well, no one's helping me with this. Well, you're like, girl, you wanted to do everything yourself, so like we were just gonna let you continue to do everything.
Yeah, he liked it when I would work with him and I would work hard, but he was like the leader of the work. He took pride in being like, I'm the worker, kind of like Mike Holloway, maybe, like how Mike was like, no one's helping, but like he took pride in it. Anyway, I love Mike. He's hilarious.
He is.
And I think he's a better winner than people give him credit for. Boom, said it, done. Anyway, sorry, I derailed. About Yule. No, well, I remember that far back.
I am actually I love Yule. I think he's a great winner. But I do think that there is a similarity here that points to something important, which is that like the fact that Ben survived because of a twist doesn't make him the worst player by default, right? Like it does mean that we didn't see him survive through his own merit, we might say. Like he had to, like he relied on something that was completely out of his control, which is something that happens all the time, but something like this that's never happened before in the history of Survivor. After 35 seasons, it finally happens, and it happens to save Ben where it could have saved many others before him. That was a lot of luck, and it certainly doesn't speak well of his game, but it is a matter of degrees. Like Yule was also saved in many respects by the final 3 twist, because Ozzy had been on an immunity run, and if Ozzy had won that final 3 immunity, Ozzy would have not taken Yule, and then Ozzy probably wins that game. And that being said, Brent is right. Like Yule was never in danger up until that point. Yule played amazingly well up until that point. Yes, he also had the God Idol, but apart from being saved like once by the God Idol, which he didn't even have to play, he just used it to convince Penner, so on and so forth. But the point is, like, there weren't like multiple times throughout his game that he needed to be saved. He had a very good social game, and the only reason he would have lost is because of uncomprehensible immunity run by Ozzy, which is also really bad luck, in the same way that a twist was really bad luck for Ozzy, that it was a final 3. Whereas Ben, I think, wasn't quite as impressive as Yule in terms of the social game and the strategic game, but he did have a lot of other good things going for him. The fact that he won through work ethic, essentially. Like he won because he went out in the middle of the night and just wouldn't stop looking for the idol, and he found it time after time, and that's what saved him. And if he hadn't had that work ethic, I think we've seen a lot of players who, if they had done that, might have survived and might have won the game, but they didn't, and so they didn't.
But I would submit that the reason he's allowed to go off by himself and like everybody is sort of fine with that is because he doesn't have social relationships to depend on in the first place. Like he doesn't have to worry about anybody voting him out because he knows he's going to be voted off. So he has the freedom to be able to go off and look for the idol where no one else does.
Sure, but even if that's true, there are lots of people who have been put in that position and have not found idol after idol. You know what I mean? Like,
well, they also didn't hide it under where you're sleeping too.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. My mom just came crawling down the hallway.
What is that?
It's an elf.
What is that doll behind you?
My mom just show your face.
That was very creepy.
She just came up. I'm sorry to be rude. She just like brought this elf to say, hello, Brent and Kevin. Anyway, sorry.
If you're listening to the podcast version.
Sorry.
I was talking, and in the bottom of the screen, there was a little elf just going past Aubrey's shoulder.
Yeah, I know,
right? Anyway.
Sorry, guys. This is
it's totally cool.
No, it's hilarious.
That was our last question anyway, so yeah, we're wrapping up.
Yes. I did say that I was going to get you to play that harp, but I don't know. Are you up to playing the harp?
It's got strings missing.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
What a shame.
Yeah, right.
But yes, you're missing out if you're not seeing the video.
I'm such an angel, right? My field hockey coach called me a harpoonist because harpist and the angelic was a little bit out of character for me.
Very nice. Well, I want to thank you guys. Do you have any final thoughts on the season as a whole? Anything else moving forward? Anything?
Who, me?
Either one of you.
Okay. I mean, like, I thought it was a great season. Very fun cast. I liked all these people. I would have been fine with any one of the 5 winning at the end. So that's something that you don't get every day. On the other hand, as I talked to Rob about on the Patreon or the Patron Friday, whatever the hell it is, that's maybe a bit of an indictment of the season as well, because I feel like that a season is really good when you have people to root against, like when there's like heroes and anti-heroes and villains. I feel like that's when Survivor's at its best. The fact that I sort of liked all 5 of these people, yeah.
No.
See, I disagree. I loved the fact that I liked all of them.
Okay, all right.
I felt like I was I felt like it was like Game of Thrones, and like any one of them could die at any moment, but I loved them all anyway, and it wouldn't like wouldn't ruin my enjoyment of the season to watch them fail.
No, I'd say that I liked that I liked them because it was like a weird combination of people where it's like I don't know where it's gonna go.
Okay.
And it like when I dislike people, and I like when it's like a dichotomy of like I like this person, I hate this person, then it feels very like binary to me. Like I'm rooting for this person, so I'm only hoping that they do well. And when I like everybody, when I feel like they each have their own story that I can appreciate and relate to and like root for, it makes me feel like there's a lot more complexity to the game that's being played and that I'm watching, where it's like this thing is happening and this thing is happening simultaneously, and like I don't even know what I'm rooting for, but it's so just like awesome to watch all these things culminating. So I really enjoyed this season. I did again. I thought the ending was a little lame. Yes. I'm pretty happy with Ben as a winner, but I don't like the twist. But I loved the season. I had so much fun watching this season.
Cool. Me too.
Yes. Aubry, any final thoughts?
I was really scared of Brent because I've listened to him and I think he's amazing at being fast and sassy, but I think I lived up to it and turned on my sassy pants.
You did.
Very much so,
And
yes.
we got you out of your shell.
Well, that's a part of me people don't always see because I'm used to things being polarizing. So Brent, thank you. I always love listening to you for just being yourself on these podcasts, and Big Brother, like you were my introduction. So I truly appreciate that. I appreciate Taryn for being zen. So thank you for bringing me out of my shell. And the last thing I'm going to say is thank you, everyone, for being kind, all your support. And just remember, please don't Michelle Ben and please don't Aubry Chrissy, because as much as you all keep the show on the air, Rob is a podcast and Reddit and Twitter exist because people want to come on them and talk. Like, just remember that like it gets to a point where these people have to live their lives and it gets tiresome and people drop out of the community when it's 3 years later and you're crapping on them because you didn't like them as people. So that's all. Most people are wonderful, but just saying, I got nervous for Chrissy and Ben when I watched the end. I was like, oh my God. But anyway.
Yeah, when Brent messaged me saying like, "Are you sure you want Aubry on the podcast with me?" Because I see what she's tweeting, and I'm not feeling that way. I was like, I feel like that's gonna work out great. Just don't be a jerk, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And when you guys started, like when you guys took off, I just couldn't stop smiling. I was so happy about
No, it's good.
the outcome that I engineered.
Because we just have different perspectives. Like that's the thing. Listen, right? We all need to, like, that's the thing in Survivor. It's just like the world. If you give the time to listen and digest what the person's saying, Brent's like kind of modified my thoughts on things. And I'm going to like have a moment to have like a Survivor ponder and like think about what I think of stuff. And we're all looking at the world through different lenses. So thank you. It was fun. And I love you guys.
Yes,
love you too, honey.
The correct way to handle Brent is to never let him affect your views and just disregard everything he says.
That's probably good advice.
Well, thank you so much, Aubry, and thank you to the little elf. Thank you to Brent. Thank you to everyone who has been listening to us talk Survivor all season long. We will be back, I think, next week. We're going to be doing an off-season Big Brother podcast. We're going to do an end-of-the-year wrap-up. We did one last year where we talked about all 3 seasons of Big Brother that took place that year. There's only 2 seasons to talk about this time, but we're going to be talking about Big Brother Canada 5 and Big Brother 19, wrapping up the year as a whole, placing the winners into the rankings and discussing what worked and what didn't work, and previewing the upcoming Celebrity Big Brother. So make sure you check in for that. Subscribe to reality TV RHAP-ups or the Big Brother feed for RHAP. And then, of course, we've been playing this game called Secret Hitler. It's a very, very fun game. With a very, very unfortunate name. But it's seriously, it's a lot of fun. It's a social strategy game. We streamed an episode for it. It was on my Twitch channel and my YouTube channel. You can check that out if you find me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn. Basically, it's if you've ever played Mafia or anything like that, it's kind of like you got secret roles. You got to lie to people. You got to see what, if they're lying. We got Johnny Mac and Rob to play with us. So lots of fun stuff there. There's going to be more of that coming up. And I think that's about it. Make sure you check out the Taryn Show. Brent, do you have anything that you've got? I know you just did a Star Wars podcast.
Yes, I did a Star Wars podcast. I did the Dark Side podcast because I was generally irritated with Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And Josh did one with Rob Cesternino and Kevin Mahadeo first, which is the Light Side podcast. They loved it for the most part. Kevin Mahadeo was saying it was the best Star Wars ever. Like I want whatever he's on, I want it. I want to tell you that. So then I did one with Josh and discussed all the flaws of the movie. And I'm also a fanboy of Star Wars. And that's probably why I responded to it the way I did. So if you haven't seen it yet, go off and see it and tell me that I'm wrong.
Yes. So check all that out. Go to robhasawebsite.com. You can find all of those things there. You can leave a comment for this podcast. As I mentioned, you can follow me on Twitter at Armstrong Taryn. You can follow Brent at OneLuckyGay, and Aubry at Aubry Bracco. Aubry, is there anything else you want to plug here?
No, just follow me, keep up with my stuff, and I'll be in LA for that event that Andrea and Meg are having in January. So I hope to see people there. It's to benefit a good cause, and I love Andrea even when I want to kill her because she's making everyone paranoid.
Very fun. And I did just recently interview Zeke Smith from Survivor on the Taryn Show. So I really highly recommend that interview.
Great interview.
He talked about some really interesting things, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm sure. Once you get him going.
I'm sure Brent enjoyed it. There was for a moment there, I felt like I was doing a Brent podcast.
Yeah, you're like, what are you talking about again?
I was very surprised. Something that really came out of nowhere.
This really happens? What?
I was like, drugs? No, I know nothing about drugs. Tell me about this drug. And it's like, oh, I was not expecting it to go there. Oh
God.
Anyway, Taryn Show, very fun. Make sure you check it out. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you.